You're recording now, I assume? Yeah. Okay, so welcome everyone to the Committee of the Whole Administration and Operations meeting Monday, January 3rd at about 6:31. Am I right on that? Probably. I guess the first order of which is called to order. The second is the approval of the agenda. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Martel. Discussion on the agenda, changes. No? Okay, call the question. All in favor? Good. Disclosure of pecuniary interest, conflict of interest, and the general nature thereof. Does anyone have a disclosure to make tonight?
Mr. Mayor, I have a potential conflict of interest on item 7B, which is the land evaluation agricultural, the LEAR we'll call it, proposal discussion. There is a lot of in there that is not impacting. However, there might be something that may come up. So as a result, I'm going to keep the form with me. If it doesn't come up, I'm not going to worry about it. But if it does, I will declare and step out of the meeting at that point in time.
Yeah, that's great that you acknowledge, I think, the potential of that, Councillor. I can't give you advice. It's not my job. You understand if you get too close for what you feel is your comfort, then by all means step away. We certainly don't want to put you in a position.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So no other disclosures, no business arising from the previous Committee of the Whole meeting minutes, if any. Anyone have any business arising? Hearing and seeing none, then there's no delegations and presentations. I don't think there's a consent agenda tonight, so we are on to discussion items, and that comes to 7A, which is the Upper Canada District School Board and competitive sports. So, and I guess that kind of comes to me. And I think ultimately I just wanted to bring this to everyone's awareness for elementary school sports. There's a pilot project for the 2025 school year that has been voted on and approved at the board level that would see changes to the way that competitive sports are now. I've certainly had lots of conversations. I haven't had the conversation to talk to Lisa Swan yet. But in discussing it with sort of some principals and some other people that have talked to the superintendents, there isn't really a lot of clear information on exactly what this means. It's what everyone's interpretation is and what was discussed in the video. But it hasn't been said as to what exactly it is. When asked if the Upper Canada Cups would continue for grade 7 and 8, the conversation was I could see no reason why not, but there was no commitment to continue the UC Cups. When asked about how kids would get to other schools, especially kids that can't afford participation now, there was a suggestion that busing may be available. But none of this is knowledge. We have no information. So ultimately, I just wanted to bring it more than just a item that sat on our correspondence list. I wanted to make everyone aware that, they probably should pick up the phone and call Lisa and understand exactly what this is from Lisa's end. And it might be worthwhile to request that Lisa come and do a delegation or we get some more information on this. I know it's not our lane, but we do have two very proud schools in Centennial and South Ed in here. I know how much sports means to kids in those schools, and how proud it is for when they bring home the UC Cup and they have clap-ins and celebrations when they win. So I just think that there is maybe a viewpoint that needs to be discussed when we have all of the information. So I don't know if people want to have further discussion. There isn't a lot of information, and I guess what I'm asking for is if we can maybe find a way to give direction to staff to get some more information for us.
I think you're looking for somebody to propose that, it sounds like, so I wouldn't mind giving him some direction to get that happening as well, to be honest, about this conversation, yeah, if that helps.
Anyone? I just see nodding, you guys.
Uh,
Steve?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, when they say end to competitive sports, like, you have to give me a little bit more.
Well, I think the idea is that at least and again, it's just the watching the video is that it becomes non-competitive and more like an intramural sport where potentially so nobody gets ever cut from a team, everybody gets equal play time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll support that we move to get a little bit more information. Maybe
Yeah.
have Lisa Swan come here for a delegation
Yeah, or something
from the school board.
from the school board as to that discussion.
By all means.
Okay, is that clear enough? Do you need something further? Do you need a motion?
Through the chair, it's best if we do have a motion directing staff to gather that information and either request some type of delegation from a representative of the board or our trustee.
I think both of those would be fitting. So if you can, yeah, do you want to move a version of that, Chris?
Well, I would like to move that exact version, to be honest, so, yeah, no, I would like
clerk
to.
can reproduce it then.
I would like to remove that. You can say it again if you'd like, but no, yeah, I would use that.
And I think you have a seconder beside
I'll
you.
second that.
Okay, and then further discussion? We don't, not much to discuss until we have the information, so. Then I will call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Good, let's get some information. Good. Thank you for the support on that. All right, so 7B, which could be a healthy discussion as well. I'm gonna throw it, I don't know, who am I throwing?
You'll throw this
present?
to the planner.
Okay, and do you have a microphone back there, Tim? Good, okay, just, I can't see it, so if you don't mind making sure it's on.
Yeah, it's on. Oh, yeah. It's good. Through there, Mr. Mayor, we prepared a response back to the county council in regards to the agricultural area review. They gave us a timeline of January 15th of this year to respond back to some some amendments to the plans showing where proposed agricultural lands are going to be located within our municipality. We did have a meeting here to discuss, you know, the lands that are going to be added and concerns that we had in future expansion of our settlement areas and how that's going to affect it. So in our general discussion in December, we talked about removing portions of the lands, and we entertained the idea of possibly adding additional lands as well to make up for the lands that we were removing. So the letter was drafted based on what we discussed. And it's put in front of the committee for a general discussion, and my feelings will not be hurt if anything needs to be updated or amended or retracted. I'm definitely open for discussion.
Thank you for that, planner. I know it's been a lengthy, very lengthy and ongoing and somewhat at times controversial process through the United Counties. And I know it's being held up moving through United Counties to appease the concerns of Edwardsburg Cardinal and North Grenville. There's a lot of suggestion for a lot of addition to protected areas, some warranted, some, in my opinion, not. But what we felt was that it needed to come back to have the opportunity to have our own planners have a look at the areas, to make comment, to work with councils to formulate something that would be amenable to Edwardsburg Cardinal. And through the consultation process, it's been exhaustive, the consultation process, that would be amenable to the township ultimately. And I think a portion of that is here tonight. So I think we're here to have a discussion regarding that, and how we move that forward ultimately. Yeah, I mean, the process is that United Counties has the ability to approve its own official plan amendments, and one of the conditions of being allowed to do official plan amendments was that they had to do before their next official plan, which is 2026, do an agricultural lear study that identified lands for protection. In that direction, there was a belief that there would be an increase in lands that needed that were identified as prime agriculture, and that would need to be protected for long-term agriculture use, which totally makes sense. We want to protect land that should be protected. So it's been a bit of a long process, but I think we're getting closer to the end, and I think some of the suggestions that the planner made here warrant and make a lot of sense. So just for my next discussion at counties and to help the counties move this along, I need a document that when it is presented in front of United Counties that I can support, or if it happens to be the deputy mayor that's there that day, that we could support moving forward as part of the new United Counties official plan. So having said that, I think I'll open the floor to comment and discussion. So you want to go? Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so I mean, when I was reviewing this, the proposal, has taken the original mapping, I believe, that was sent in by the counties. We've taken off lands that we thought were critical for our future growth, development, and prosperity for the whole township. And I think that's important for us to be able to get that out there. I do find that I'm having issues with with respect to adding properties to this. There's a lot of implications. There's cost, there's extra time for the consultation. And basically, in order to give ratepayers who are now implicated in this where they weren't before, and keeping in mind that everybody else has had 2 years potentially of reviewing this LEAR and getting accustomed to dealing with the impacts of that on their property and their rights. And given that, I think I heard you say tonight as well that in 2026 is when this is due, and thinking we don't have that runway. We the counties, I guess, in that regard, don't have the runway to get 2 years of consultation on this. So with all that in mind, I do would like to propose an amendment that we do what we were going to do as removing the properties that we think we need for our future development. But I don't think that we should go forth with adding any lands, to be honest, at this point, unless a conversation has to happen to move us in that direction. I just, like I said, I think it's going to be costly time and material, time and dollar value, and it seems to be in a bit of a the impact to people who didn't know before and now have to be made aware, I think is too significant at this point in time to proceed. So that's my opinion, and I think that there's a lot of people could be impacted by this. So, yep.
Good. Thanks. Thanks for that, Councillor Ward. Just to clear up in case I wasn't clear before. So 2026 is when the United Counties has to send in their next version of their official plan. So this would be an amendment to the current plan. So it has to be approved before that as one of the studies that's done for when it gets submitted. So it'll be approved as an official plan amendment, and then it'll be put through as part of the new official plan application. So not just part of the official plan application, but I understand what you meant. So, and I think having sat at it and believe me, we spent hours on this discussion with Planscape, I think was the name of the planning company. Debbie Vandenacker was our was a person we worked with, and certainly was aggressive in identifying lands that should likely be presented. It was more of a tabletop presentation done with lots of consultation, and it has been exhausting. So when you talk about the removal and not adding anything new to it, the removal of it for what we identify as areas that for growth or just don't make sense. I 100% agree. The land that had been suggested to be added, if we did that, it does begin an exhaustive consultation process where we've got to talk to each landowner again. We've got to ask for their input again. We have to go through, the public meetings. We'd have to go through all of that if we made those changes. So the removal of those additions actually probably makes a lot of sense to me. Of the new additions, and then once it's approved as an official plan amendment, if any of those identified areas wanted to apply to have them considered after the OPA, there's nothing to stop them from having them added after that process is done at their own bequest, if they so choose. So they'd be excluded, but could be added back. That makes tons of sense to me. Yeah, then it doesn't slow down the process either, and it doesn't cost us anymore to try to go out and do further consultation when the cost has already been enormous to the United Counties, and ultimately they're very aggressive with the amount that they want to preserve. So it kind of balances both. Makes a lot of sense. Deputy Mayor, were you done? Sorry.
Yes, I was, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor, anything? Mike.
Yeah, it's just that we've done, this has been a long, drawn out process, no question about it. And I do agree with Mr. Ward, it's going to affect some people. They do have time still to, if they're interested in surveying a couple lots off their farm, they can do it now before this comes into effect for sure. So that helps them. The people that might be, like my concern was people bought 50 acres, wanted maybe a couple acres to retire, to sell as lots. They'll lose that. So it's very, very important that we get every single person that affects us in our township on board that takes in this. On the other hand, to take out what we kind of, I thought was fair to the counties about adding in some of our agriculture land, because I am a very a believer in agriculture for sure. So as we say, we shouldn't take it out. I kind of like to leave it in and take it to the counties the way it is. That's just my opinion until we take a vote on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Until Councillor Ward spoke, I was very happy with this the way it was. And I think I'm going to stick with my original thought. This is, we're taking some out. Let's put a little bit in and sort of balance it out. But good thoughts.
I didn't realize it was on. Thought I didn't say anything. I agree with what Councillor Ward and Martel both said. I think it should just stay the way it is. And Deputy Mayor Dillabaugh spoke some great things about it. So I like it the way it is.
I think I have to agree as well. I think if we're taking lands out, I mean, it makes sense to me to put some back in. It's just agriculture it's important, and I think the lands need to be protected as such.
Don't want there to be a confusion that we're taking lands out of what is already approved in our OP as agricultural lands, because there's a considerable, like this increases United Counties, before we looked at the United Counties addition, the amount of land in Edwardsburg Cardinal would go up. I think the number was, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it was 11% of additional land. So it equaled out to about 11%. And I think it ends up overall being protected land in 1 in 22%. So it's between 1 in 4 and 1 in 5 acres would end up being protected land in Edwardsburg Cardinal. So it's quite an addition that from the original number is that we already have in our official plan, that Debbie Vandenacker and Planscape added a lot more to it. We've kind of gone in and refined that a little bit. And then our planner added a couple more layers that Debbie hadn't identified. And she was pretty aggressive in the amount that she had identified. Just don't want there to be any confusion. We're not actually taking out from what's already approved. We're sort of taking it out from what the planner had said. Yeah. John?
One concern I have when I was looking over your third diagram at the back end of the township, it's hard to make out where it is because there's no lot numbers or concession lines on the map showing there where you're looking at. I'm guessing at where I'm looking at, but it's not really very easy to pick out where the land is you're actually taking out. I think most of the land that you're taking out there is land that has been added into agriculture that you're taking out that wasn't in agriculture in the first place, was in rural, but.
Sorry, compared to what was rural originally before the Planscape went at it, there's a lot that Planscape, like I just said, yeah, there's an enormous addition of acres for Edwardsburg Cardinal, and that's why it's not that we don't want to protect farmland, you know that, we want to protect farmland, but we want to make sure that it's the right farmland to be protecting, right?
Well, in Cardinal, the huge chunk there was rural.
Right.
There, we never designated it agriculture start. Granted, it's been cleared a lot of it, and it is into productive agricultural land. I kind of wondered why they went all the way back to the 401 with it instead of just halfway way back and let the other land at the back, because I think it'd be very rare, unlikely chance that it'd ever be developed all the way back to 401 in that huge area. Like there'd have to be huge amount of roads put in, a huge amount of drainage put in there to develop it. The only question I had was on the last map where at the back end of the township where you're taking E and F and J out of it, and I couldn't really figure out where those spots were because there's no lot lines or no concession lines or roads on there to kind of guide me for where they're being taken out of.
All right. Do you have any of that information in front of you, Tim?
Through you there, Mr. Chair. Yeah, yes, I do.
So we're looking at E. E is land to be removed. F was land to be removed. J was land to be removed. And I believe that those,
I assume J's along the Hindman Road, it must be, is it?
I think so, yeah. I think that's correct, right?
Yes, that's correct. J is along the roadway. F would be along Ventnor Road as well, to give the possibility of additional lots there. And then E is the area just east of the 416 there, where there's been some activity lately for development proposals or applications, hopefully in the future. So
What's the access road to E? Where are they coming in, come into what road?
44.
through there, Mr. Chair, I don't have that in front of me, although I can find that out if you if I have access to a tablet or a computer here.
It's Ventnor Road, right? Is that right? Ventnor Road and 44? I think it's Ventnor Road and 44.
Yeah. Through there, Mr. Chair, a portion of E would actually be on Ventnor Road and the other would be on 44.
Okay. So that's a turn back. Okay. All right. I have no problem with it. I just
So that was it.
couldn't really place where it was. So.
Yeah, that chunk was included. And I think the suggestion, because of development possibilities there, is that you know, it be removed, I think is what, I think that's what I heard Tim say, that there's been some discussion on it, so. The
Only area I really kind of agreed with being that I thought really should be added in is the land in the industrial park that's being or in the land bank that's being added in there. I think that's a good,
yeah, and
most of that gets added in there where
Yep.
it's going to be a lot easier to deal with. So,
Yep. And well, again, we have to be super careful about discussing the land bank and what land is there and that. But I think the idea would be, even if it isn't added in today, if the township was ever to become the owner of it, not the province, that the sort of the intention would be that it would be added back in regardless. Right. I mean, that's what makes the most sense. Just to be super careful when we discuss land bank.
I'm not as much worried under their new official plan of the land that's being added into the agricultural base or taken out as I am under the land that's being added into wetlands more than I am.
Well, and the other part, and again, it's not part of this discussion, but I have to have it before 2026 as well, is that you'll remember the aggregate mapping
yeah.
and how that's just sitting on a shelf though, right? Like we still have to have, it still has to be part of 2026, and you know the effects. I mean, I heard you speak to it lots. Deputy Mayor would have heard you speak to it lots. It's one of the biggest reasons we fought against some of it. But the reality is that is another constraint to development in the township as well, regardless how we move that study forward. So the more land we protect here, the more land that potentially is going to be forced to be protected through the aggregate, the more that's protected through wetlands, the availability to develop and to grow is certainly limited. And we all know that it's that growth that pays for that budget that we're about to look for, right? And without the ability to secure that growth or that potential growth for generations like your grandkids and their kids, I mean, that's ultimately what we're looking at today, right?
Well, and the big part is we looked at it before, some of the key areas that they want to put into agricultural resource is the area where the township wants to develop.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the
Yeah.
big constraint. It's not as much restriction in agriculture. We all know from the farming community, we can have it protected under agricultural all we want. And there's 1,000 acres that's been designated agriculture, that's class 1 and 2 land that's being province is just throwing out and developing. It didn't matter what the townships or farming community decided or conservation authorities, like it's a line drawn in the sand and the tide washes it away when the right pressure comes. So,
Well, I certainly would say that Eastern Ontario is under the pressure right now to right some of those wrongs.
yeah.
And as somebody who has to sit at the table at that next level of government and make the argument as to what land we protect and what land we don't, so that we can justify the growth as we know where our areas should grow. The more restraints that we put on it, the less development we're going to have. And the more we're going to see that development happen in other parts of the province, and will get continued to be left behind. So I hear you, and I understand exactly what you mean and where you're coming from it. But that doesn't mean that we should that we should bow down and allow that to happen to us either.
No, it's a case of fighting against it, but agricultural land is never going to get protected fully until, instead of doing like we're doing here and looking at where you want to develop and where it shouldn't be developed, and deciding that that's, we're going to put that in or take it out, until the province or the federal government actually makes a thing that all class 1 and class 2 farm land can't be built on.
Mhm.
When that's passed and set in stone, our farmland will be protected. But right now, the big cities they want to expand, and most of the big cities were built near the real good agricultural land. That's what they were built there for in the first place. And we're just gobbling up. We're losing something like 10 acres every hour of agricultural land. So
Yeah, 100% agree. And we ended up using a Toronto environmentalist to do this study. So if anything, I would say, you know, the study was aggressive in nature to protect the land that it did protect, and adding more to it, in my opinion, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, you as a farmer can add land back to that and apply to have that zoning and that designation changed anytime you want.
well,
Um,
farmland doesn't get developed on until the farmers sell it.
sure.
So it can be rural, it can be agriculture. Unless we sell it, it's not going to get built on.
But the only thing that does change is the value every time you take an acre that's already considered rural, that's being farmed. It reduces your property owner rights, your ability to sever it, and it reduces the value of that land down to what agricultural land is. We all know that. And so if you're retiring and you have that land as rural and it gets switched to agricultural this week, it certainly affects the way that you're going to retire. And you have a right. You bought that land. We need to protect that right. So I struggle when we're adding more in. That's all that I'm saying. You have that right to add it in if that's your choice. But I struggle as government being the one that tells you how to do that. I do. So
We didn't get in any of this trouble until the government, our provincial government, and their wisdom give the United Counties the right to
OPAs.
do all their planning. When the townships had it in their own hands, we had a lot better control over it.
Yeah, I think and again, if you went back to what we had already defined originally as the land that should be protected in our original OP or what's in our OP now, this adds a lot of land to it. The Debbie Vandenacker portion does. And then the adjustment that our planner made where they took some out and added more to it, it's certainly way more aggressive than what our original, what we had in our original official plan. And then we're just trying to make what Debbie put forward manageable, right? And I to Councillor Ward's point, I think what we're going to end up doing if we add that land, more land to what Debbie's original proposal was, not just take some out. She's already added land to it. We've removed a little bit, but we're going to add a bunch more. And if we add that bunch more, we have to go through that exhaustive process again of asking you, hey, John, do you want your land rights changed from rural to agricultural? And you've got to go through that entire process for every single one of those landowners. We got to go through this thing, and we would have to do that study ourselves. We would be paying for it, not the United County, so that we could make the argument, and we'd have to have that done before 2026. It's just, to me, adding land back in doesn't make a lot of sense on those, one, the cost. It's already rural land. We're trying to change it to agricultural. If somebody wants to do that, then they can come to it. We don't need to approve it today to do that. That would be my argument. I would say go with what Debbie had approved already. Listen to what our planner says about the development and not go forward with any additions, but consult with landowners. We can send them a letter, say, hey, we've identified your land as potential agricultural use. Would you like to add it too? And if they say yes, then as the process moves forward for the official plan in 2026, then we could always make those changes. That way it sort of makes everybody happy. But so far with this board, I've only heard 2 of us who believe that that's the way it should go forward, and 3 that don't. So
I don't see nothing wrong with the plan that you've proposing here, if that's what you want to go with. I do think that should be easy to have the land that you want added to agricultural resource that's in the land bank, because the
Yep.
government's not gonna
They're going to want us to do that.
oppose.
Yeah.
They'll take whatever you want it at.
Yeah, 100%. And we all know why too,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So, yeah. But we don't own it. We're deciding what their landowner rights are for them, right? Without any consultation with them.
We should have owned it 6 years ago.
Well, speaking of patience, eh, Steve? All right. So,
Mr. Mayor, sorry.
yes.
Based on the outcome of this decision and you know the financial implications it could be on the ratepayer as well, I do think that I would like to request this as a recorded vote to make sure that when we come down to it later on and we figure out what happened, if there's a lot of hue and cry, that we know we put our hand on heart and voted with how we wanted to vote, and so I'd like this to be a recorded vote, please.
Yeah. When we,
There is actually no motion on the table right now. This is a discussion item. So
There will be.
I think maybe given the discussion, Mr. Mayor, if you want to ask the question again and take consensus around the table and see if anything's changed as a result of the discussion.
all right. One thing I'll look to staff for clarification. The United Counties has requested commenting by the 15th, correct?
That is
Yes,
correct.
that's correct.
Yeah, that's the idea. So we won't have time to approve anything as a council anyway. Just thinking, when is our next meeting? Can we get more in, like, I don't want to kick this. It's too important. I need to be able to speak to it on the 15th if I have to speak to it. And I would like to know, I mean, I'd like to at least know, and I've sort of heard how everybody feels about it, but I'd like to be, what I'd like when I go to the United Counties is that everyone around the table is comfortable with the document that we put forward to the United Counties. Because what I need to do is I need to be able to, the mayors around the table are the ones that give the direction to the planners to move things forward. Right now, 8 mayors are happy with the way that the Lear process is on their property. There are 2 of us that aren't. If there was a vote that it was held on Wednesday, it could go 8-2 and it would pass. And we would be forced to accept whatever the United Counties says. And what I'm trying really hard to do is to get something that's palatable to all of us so that when I go to the counties on Wednesday, I can say, here's what we're comfortable with. Here's the reasons that we did it. Our planner's in support of it. Our council's unanimous in support of it. And Edwardsburg Cardinal is ready to check the box and be the 9th one to be okay with it. Nothing's going to move forward until North Grenville's comfortable with theirs, because I think that North Grenville will still have the support of the other 9 mayors. But all of us understand that we need to get this amendment done, and it really needs to be done well in advance of our official plan application that we have to do when we file it to the province. And I think we all understand we don't want the province dictating how this process is going to go in Edwardsburg Cardinal. We have the ability to do it right now at this table. And the last thing I want is somebody in Toronto telling us it's exactly what you just said. Somebody in Toronto telling us what we're going to protect and what we're not going to protect. And they very well may anyway. But I think we have the opportunity right now to say, this is what we think we should protect, and this is why, right? And I really was hopeful that we could all land on the same page. So maybe one more round of discussion, see if we can get to some sort of consensus. And if we can't, then we'll move on.
No, I think my decision hasn't changed, and you know, in a negotiation, I don't think you go forth and give everything up right away. You know, to your point, this conversation still has to happen at the counties. So, you know, giving them everything that we don't even want, you know, isn't how I would negotiate this one, to be honest. To your point, we've you know, just because we don't add these lands back in, we're still adding a bunch of lands into the equation already. I mean, you know, when we're already taking the lion's share between us and North Grenville of all the properties being added. I think from a, you know, from the perspective of the rest of the townships, I would bet they're happy about it, absolutely, because it's all coming here. So, you know, we need to be able to develop as well, or we're going to be just an agricultural forever place and doing, you know, more than our part to keep, you know, Toronto and Ottawa and all the metropolis is happy and not worrying about our own self-interest in some ways. So I'm heavily dead set against adding more lands, to be honest. So I can't change that opinion.
Yeah, and as John said, if they were class 1 and class 2 farmlands, then that's what we should be doing, is being, you know, an agricultural basket, but that's not what these lands are. So Deputy Mayor, did you want back in?
No, I just want to get this, get it over with, what you want to do. We've already put this through. Has this gone to counties already? No. Okay, so Ms. Mills hasn't seen it. It's just in front of you, eh? Tim?
Yes, that's correct. It's only in front of me there at the time.
Okay.
We would shape, that's what we're discussing tonight, Steve, is what we shape tonight to make sure that what we send to the counties is we're all comfortable with.
Yeah, no, I'm good on it because some of the areas that we put in is all land bank, a lot of it. So that's going to be agriculture. Okay, so I'm good.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that end of the table and go with the table.
Okay.
I as well, because I'm looking over the map and it seems this is a good idea, what Tim has put together to send the county.
Okay, Tim, do you want to speak to anything?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. There might be a little bit of confusion here when I guess our initial talks in December in regards to what lands would be taken out and some considerations about potentially lands being put back in or lands being added for compensation. It was more of a general discussion at the time. I'm hearing, I think, from both sides about trying to maintain as much agricultural lands as possible. However, the issue in regards to additional time, money for adding these lands, I think is going to cause an issue potentially. As the planner, I would have no issue in removing the proposed lands and have that maybe come forward at a later date to the county. But to simplify things, that's going to be in front of the county is to address just the plan that was put in front of us to review. I think maybe bringing the additional lands forward might muddy the waters and we may not get the approval that we want to remove the lands. So if we were to remove the lands that we're proposing to add, we're not losing any existing prime agricultural lands that we currently have right now.
Right.
So just understand that the lands that are currently being removed, or actually that we're proposing to remove, are lands that are currently being proposed to be added. They're not actually currently prime agricultural lands too. So there is a large amount of prime ag lands that's going to be added
Right.
based on their original plan. So I think if we move forward based on the removal, I think would be a simplified approach at this time.
So just so that I'm clear on this, so if I'm looking at the map on page 10, let's say, the pink area that's marked C wasn't identified or scored high enough to be added to the prime ag study, the original prime ag study. We added that back in as a, sort of to make a continuous block while we decided to remove B and A. Am I right in thinking that?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, the block shown as C is virtually made up of lower quality lands. We were just generally discussing just adding that just to square off that block. It, by not adding it, wouldn't cause any issue in regards to prime ag, was it class 2 and 3 lands?
Yeah, right. So the ones that we've added weren't identified as, but they were to help our argument when we went back that we're taking some of the ones that you suggested out, but we're willing to add some of these back in. That fair?
That's correct.
All right.
That's right.
I don't know if that's going to change anybody's mind. Doesn't sound like it, but okay, where are we at? I need some help.
Yeah. What would be an option for council to do would be to call a motion that the draft letter be amended to only include part A and B, which is the pieces that we would like removal or removed from the consultant's report, and the rest can come later at a future date if needed.
I don't know that I have the support around the table. Well, I mean, if somebody wanted to make that motion, I don't get the sense that I have the support around the table to do that. So
Yeah, Tim, you're saying to take out the C, D, G, H, and I, is that right? For now? The ones that we said land to be added?
Yes, through you there, Mr. Mayor. C, D, G, H, and I would be the lands to be removed from the report.
Yeah. I'll move that.
because like going back to page 10 again, are we not removing A and B as well? Oh, no, from the report. Sorry. Gotcha.
No, it's C, D, G, H, and I. Yeah. Well, you should care. It's the land that we put in to be added. I'm making a motion that we move it for now.
And I would second that.
C, D, G, H, and I. C, D, G, H, and I.
So the motion is to remove those.
Yes. Right.
And you're going to move that?
I'll move that.
It's on the table.
Okay, and it's seconded? All right. Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor. All right, further discussion? You guys were not in favor of that before. Do you care to speak to it again?
No, I'm happy.
Aaron, want another go? John, further? You have to turn your mic on.
Turn your
though,
mic on,
Joseph.
please.
I don't know where you get as much support if you're taking land out when you're not adding any in it. That kind of goes to the province. but
I will
that's
let
what
them
the
come to
county
us for that
decided,
one.
so.
Yep. I think that's the risk. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I think the province is going to end up doing the final say anyway, so.
I think that's the dice that we roll, right? But okay, and Chris, you requested, are there further? Has anyone, we've exhausted it pretty good. Further? Okay, and Chris requested a recorded, so I don't have a recorded
It's,
in front of me. So what's the order?
Chris.
Okay, so who's Ward 1?
Yeah, that's me.
How do you vote?
Yay.
Who's Ward 2?
Me,
How do you vote?
yay.
Ward 3?
Yay.
Deputy Mayor?
Yay.
And I vote yay. Thank you for your support, gentlemen. Okay, so moving on to item 8. Thank you to staff as well, and to Planner Fisher. Thank you, Tim, for the work that you did on that file. I know you did a lot of work on it over your Christmas break, and I appreciate the work that you put into it. So I know it isn't quite what you'd originally drawn up, but that's the way it goes, and I appreciate you. I appreciate the work you do. Thank you. All right, so CIP proposals, is the interim clerk speaking to this or the clerk speaking to this?
Through the
Neither.
chair. Actually,
Through the
neither.
chair, it'll actually be the community engagement consultant that we have. That
All
will-
right,
that will
Mary's
do
going to
that.
speak to it. All right.
Through the chair, so we're taking a second stab at this. What we were overlooking in December was good reference checks, and that has subsequently occurred. I've included those details in the report, and we're still recommending that we go ahead and award to NPG.
Okay. I'm going to open it to the group. I do have one question at the very end, and I think I'll fire it to the CAO, not to you, but I'm just going to open it for discussion around the table. I'll just go for showing of hands. I'll try to speed things along a little bit. Anyone? We got, I'm assuming, we read the reviews. Everything is good. You did the follow-up. It's kind of what we had asked
There
for,
was also a
so.
question through the chair at the last meeting about insurance, and
Yep.
we asked for 5,000 general liability, sorry, 5 million general liability and 1 million errors and omissions, and they actually have 5 for both.
Good. Everyone's happy with those? Okay. So my question to the CAO in reading through and then going to, I don't want to say it wrong, but is it I don't have my thing open in front of me. Is it
NPG.
NPG, right? NPG Planning Solutions?
Yes.
Am I right in thinking that?
Yes.
So in reading through their website, they do considerable amounts of work for lots of different fields. One of the things that I saw that intrigued me, and it's not part of a CIP, but if we're forming a relationship with them, and I know we want to move towards some possibility of doing planning applications online. I know every time we're out and we're talking to people, they want to be able to do planning permits and planning applications, permitting, especially online. And I noticed that digital permitting is part of it. Just wondering if there's any way that, this contract might be open enough to include the possibility of some of that.
Through the chair, yes, we can certainly look at that. One thing also to note that staff has already started down that road of digital permitting. So we've had a couple of vendors in to give us demos, and we're actually meeting tomorrow to discuss that. So I'll definitely bring NPG to the table if we want to engage them as far as implementation help, or at the very least vetting the work that we've done so far.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I noticed, again, reading through the website, they've done quite extensive work with it. So, okay, so this is an action item. I'm looking at the clerk, is there a motion with it? Sorry. Or a recommendation?
Through the chair, yes, there is.
And would you mind reading it for me?
Sure, that committee recommend that council approve the award of the Community Improvement Plan project to NPG Planning Solutions in the amount of $27,980 plus non-rebated HST.
Okay, I need a mover for that motion.
So move.
Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Smale. Further discussion? All in favor? Good. All right, pregnancy and parental leave policy. We asked for this to come back with some work and some updates to it, I think. Am I correct in
That is correct.
that? And can we do you want to speak to the changes?
Yeah,
to it? There, I need a little help getting my brain around exactly what we're approving, but
I will turn this over to our treasurer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for, through the chair. So what you have before you is just a draft of the pregnancy and parental leave policy. So this came about from the market survey conducted by our consultants during the compensation review. And in December, some options were presented to council, and after discussion, option number 1 was chosen. So there's two parts to this option. The first being that the employee would remain in the benefit plan, and the premiums for the benefit being paid by the employer, and then the employee would receive a supplemental pay equal to 15% of their regular pay. The second option for the employee to choose gives the employee the option to either waive their benefits or pay the premiums themselves, and then they would receive a supplemental pay equal to 30% of their regular pay. So really the difference here being receiving that extra 15% in lieu of the benefits, or paying those benefits out of pocket, or receiving the 15% and remaining in the plan and the employer paying those benefits. The other change that we did make was for the eligibility. Council requested that the time be extended, so we have extended it to 26 weeks for employees to become eligible for the policy. So you can see both those options, option number 1 and the recommendation from council being presented in the draft policy.
Thank you. I still am going to need your help with some math. So, but one of the changes is you have to be an employee for 6 months before you're eligible for this benefit.
That's correct.
Okay. I think I'm just going to ask my questions first, and maybe it'll clear it up, because I think we're all in support of it. I just want to understand the financial portion of it. Is there a way that you can show me the numbers versus me trying to figure out what 15% plus benefits, like, can you show me in the numbers sense so that it makes sense? Like,
sure. So
here's what they make, here's what their benefit, I think their benefits up to 55% for mat leave plus 15%, but I want to make sure that I have all the numbers correct in my brain.
Okay, so I did preemptively kind of run some numbers. I didn't pick anything from our pay grid. I just picked a random number, 50,000 being the employee salary. So I'll explain the EI portion of what the employee would be receiving while they're on maternity leave. This is separate from the township. This would just basic employment insurance. So there is a maximum that an employee can receive of the 55%. So it does cap at $65,700. So the employee would receive, if they make more than that, they would receive 55% of $65,700, which is $36,135 for the year.
Okay, just hold for 1 sec. So the max you can make on mat leave is 36,000. What did you say it was?
135.
135. Okay, continue.
Okay, so that would be the portion that's received from EI. And then what we're proposing for the pregnancy and parental leave is a top up. So first being the 15%. So if it was an employee making $50,000, 15% of that is $7,500. So while the employee is on leave, they do not participate in the pension plan. This is just across the board. It's not an option. It's when a person is not in employment, they don't participate in the pension plan. So the employer would not be paying that portion as well, because it's a matched pension plan, matched from the employee and the employer. So there is that savings there from the pension plan. So for the total cost of, let's say, the 15%, the total cost to the township would be $16,500 for, let's say, the 15% option. If the employee were to choose and waive their benefits and choose the 30% top up, the 30% is $15,000 of $50,000. So we would be paying CPP, EI, WSIB, and EHE. Those are all mandatory payments that the employer would have to pay. And that would equate to $16,788 for the year.
That's at the 30%?
That's at 30%.
Sorry, what was the one at 15% again? I wrote down 16,500.
Yeah, $16,594.
So there's really not much difference between the two?
No, no, because of the benefits. And that's the whole point of the difference between the 15% and the 30% is to make it even so that we're either paying the benefits or we're paying a higher supplemental pay.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to understand. Or were you finished? Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, I can just explain also the cost of the person that we would be replacing during that time of leave. So the thought was that the employee would probably be further ahead in the pay grid, let's say pay or the third step in the pay grid. When we're replacing that employee, that person would probably come in at the lower end of the pay grid. So there's about a 10% difference. So let's say we're paying the replacement 45,000. I've included a calculation that they would be participating in the pension plan because I do have that option. So that number I have included that number in. I have removed the benefits because usually on a contract, benefits are not offered to contract employees. So that cost is $54,800 for the year. So when you add in, so I'll do option A for the 15%. So when you add in the supplemental pay plus the replacement, the difference between the employee being here the full year is $2,100. So that's the difference. So the whole purpose of the construction of the supplemental plan is to try to equal the replacement plus the supplemental pay, equaling what we would have paid anyways to the employee if they were in full employment.
I mean, ultimately, the suggestion is that for every 50K, it'd be $2,100, give or take a couple of bucks. And
right, depending on
Yeah.
as the pay goes up, there's
Yeah.
more taxes
And
that those increase.
and so, which works on 50K. It looks a lot different when it's on 170 or something like that.
For sure.
So
Yes.
so if it was on one of the higher numbers,
So if it was $100,000, the 15% would be $4,800, and if it was the 30%, it's $11,400.
okay, so it was on 100,000, 55% EI would cover, so they would be eligible to 55,000, right? No?
No, they would be still eligible for 55% of the 65,000 because it caps.
Of the 65,000. See, that's where I'm messing it up. I'm keep going to 55,000. So it's still considerably less than that. So it's still 55. The maximum they could get would be 55% of the 65.
That's correct.
So they would still be maxed at, regardless of what their income would be, they're maxed at 36,135.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. This makes way more sense to me now than it did before. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for getting it. I need kindergarten math sometimes. And this one I found very complex and confusing because of the EI number. So thank you for helping me with that clarity. It certainly gets me a long way towards where I need to be in this. So thank you. Speakers.
Thank you very much. And then add in your source deductions tables, and they still have it on paper. It's been a while since they did a payroll, but that gets it even more fun for you for sure, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, and I had some concerns originally, and I think I'm okay with it. I mean, I worry more about the emotional decision made by a staff member. The overall, when you look at our staff, the size of our staff, the makeup of our staff, I don't think this is a thing where we have a choice for spending millions of dollars on this or anything serious like that. But I do worry a bit about the emotional. I'll go for the 30% and take a risk on my health and the health of my newborn child. So, I'll defer to whatever council says, but I would just recommend, in my own opinion, that we just stick with 15% and keep it that way. But not everybody's conditions are the same, and some people already have a spouse that has a plan. So I'm okay with either way. I just think it's worth noting that, it's if it were me, I'd probably take the, more money in my pocket now and take a risk potentially. And so that might not be what we want people to do on staff for their own benefit. So
Good. Thanks, Councillor Ward. Deputy,
No, I'm good with the recommendation.
you're good? Joe?
Good with the recommendation.
Good recommendation.
John?
I have one, one question on it. I didn't quite get when you're going through it. When they, I understand they keep their seniority while they're off. Do they have they lose, we're not paying the pension fund at the time.
That's correct.
They're not paying the pension fund, but when they come back, do they have the option to buy back that year of pension?
Absolutely.
They do have the right. Okay,
Yes.
that's all I want to know, make sure that they do have the option to buy it back.
They would be buying back the employee and the employer portion
Okay,
of,
good.
of the pension.
Good. And I think I know where this is going before I ever bring it to a question, but I think I'll actually do the question first and then I'll make my comments, I guess, after that. So there is a recommendation and it reads that committee directs council to adopt the pregnancy and parental leave policy as presented. I need a mover. Moved by Councillor Martel, seconded by Councillor Ward. Further discussion, if any? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Good. And I guess and I was for that too. I just want to say to staff, it gets harder and harder and harder to attract and retain employees. And I think this group has made a lot of effort to be progressive in, I don't know that we're ever going to reach the employer of choice status. I don't think that that's that important to us. But I think every time we have the opportunity to help situations, help our employees and make having a child not be a burden, in this instance, but to further benefit plans and to do what's right only makes sense. And I know this group always supports that. Even when we send things back and ask for more information, it's that we do have a financial duty to make sure that we, protect our township and do the things that are right. But this certainly goes a long way towards succession planning, and it certainly shows our employees that we're serious about helping them and making sure that we're good employers. So thank you to all staff and their work on this. It's important. Okay. And from that one to a water report. All right, COO Grant, would you like to speak to the water reports?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our chief water sewer operator is enjoying some warmer weather and hopefully some sunshine.
Good for them.
This report is sort of annual for those that have been on council for some time. It's each year, so it's just basically a summary of our water systems, sort of activities done, sampling, and any sort of major expenses that are done throughout the year. So part of this is to have this put together, to post on the website, and to notify the users of the system that the report is available. And if they'd like to view it, they can make arrangements down at the wastewater treatment plant during normal operating hours to view the report. So basically, there is a recommendation sort of outlining that. But if there are any questions with respect to the report, I will do my best to answer those questions. So back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, CO. I'll open it to the group. Anyone? Questions? No. Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just wondering, David, I've been reading the report and there's nothing on page 42, I believe it is, other than the THM and HAA. You have numbers there. What does THM mean and what does HAA mean, and why do they have numbers nobody else does?
Through the mayor. So the report you're referring to is the industrial park report. So Basically, we just have a sort of standalone distribution system. So the sampling requirements are substantially less, and we're only required to do the THM and the HAA with respect to that sort of chemical testing. So that is total trihalomethanes is the THM, and the HAA is haloacidic acids, which is a subcomponent of the trihalomethanes. And you'll notice in the report that that is a lower number than the total trihalomethanes. So
Thank you very much, David.
Everyone good? Good, Karen, John? No, I do. I just have one, and 32 of 93, and it's the microcystin. So detected in raw water, then the algae bloom sampling plan initiated as per the drinking water license. Can you explain that? There's a couple of different numbers, like September 9th, October 3rd, October 28th, vary from the other numbers a little bit. Can you explain so that we understand exactly what that is?
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will do my best on this one. This is a little bit of a newer requirement. So as part of our drinking water license, we're required to test. Really, what it is an indicator of blue-green algae formation on the source water. So typically through the main periods, I'm going to say anywhere from May to October. Just the standard protocol is a raw water sample every month. So long as it's under the method detection limit, which you'll see is the less than 0.115, I believe is what's on there. You're just continuing with that standard protocol. As soon as you get a hit above that, anywhere above that method detection limit, you move into a different protocol, which now you're sampling weekly. The raw water, potable water, and also to take a shoreline sample. You have to continue that weekly sampling protocol until you have 3 consecutive weeks of samples that all are back under the method detection limit. So we were into October, I believe, before we had reached 3 consecutive samples. My apologies. We were into November.
Yeah, I saw
If
that.
I'm looking at that.
Raw, meaning where the pipe intakes from the river, like at the actual intake of the river, or measured once it comes in?
So through the mayor, we do have a pump that actually takes a water sample from the intake in and around the intake structure. So that's where that raw sample would take place. And then basically the shoreline sample is as I suppose as obvious as possible. It's just the dipping the sample bottle in along the shoreline to get a better indication.
Okay. And so the blue-green algae was actually, though, at depth versus surface. That's more where I was going with that.
That's where it was. That's where that indicator was detected. There were throughout all the sampling, there was no visible indication of blue-green algae growth in and around there. On the shoreline or at the raw water sample. Some of the increased protocols are set in place really for the province to get a better understanding of the magnitude of blue-green algae and trying to figure out what's happening in that landscape.
Yeah, no, and not in the potable. So that's.
No, there was nothing detected. It was less than the method detection limit.
Yeah, great. As always, send our, I don't think, is there any further? Nobody had any to begin with, just me. As always, to you and Eric and Aaron and the group, thank you for the work that they do. And I think the report looks fantastic. Is there, There was nothing further, was there at all? You're good? All right, so
I suspect I've bored you enough.
I don't have page, you said 28. I was on 44. Sorry. I'll get back up there so I can read it. I know you have such good patience, Steve. The recommendation reads that committee recommend that council, one, receive the 2024 annual water reports for the CWS and the EDS. Two, direct staff to post the annual water reports to the township website, and three, direct staff to notify users via social media and newspaper of the report's availability. I need a mover. Moved by Councillor Chris Ward, seconded by Councillor Joe Martell. Further discussion of any? Hearing none, then I'll call the question. All in favor? Good. We can move on to the employee group benefit marketing results.
That will be me.
All right, fire away.
All right, through the chair. Once every council term or every 4 years, W.A. Pakeman and Associates, the broker of record for the township, performs a marketing analysis for the group benefits to ensure, for both the township and the port, to ensure rates are competitive in the marketplace. At first pass with Sun Life, they came back with a 16% increase, or $6,217 per month. They came back with a revised increase of 1%, which would be about $282.91 per month. Since our plan is basically kind of like a pay-as-you-go plan, as usage increases, so do our premiums. The only other company that bid on our services was Canada Life, and they actually offered a 6.48% reduction. Works out to about a $2,400 savings a month. In prior years, we've seen this before where we get a nice deal up front and then we get hammered in future years. But one thing that Canada Life did was put a rate cap on those increases. So the most they can increase it per year is 10% for the next 2 years. So that gives us some cost certainty for the remainder of this council's term, and allows us to save a bit now, and then we would see about a 4.5% increase year over year, averaged out over the 3 years. Both of the quotes, one of the things that has come up a few times over the course of the last year was medical and dental benefits for council. So that's priced into the quote that we received. So should we decide to switch to Canada Life, then at that time, should council members of council wish to opt in for that benefits, then we can certainly accommodate that. The one thing is with that 16% that we originally got from Sun Life, they did knock it down to 1, but we also now realize that we're 15% to the bad side of things, that we will eventually see that 15% come down at some time or another. So the nice thing about Canada Life is it does give us that cost certainty over the 3 years, that at maximum it would be 10% per year. So if we come in less, then great.
Just one question in regard to that. So they haven't quoted 3 years out. They've quoted 1 year at minus 6.5% based on what we've seen. And the most that we can see in year 2 and year 3 would be the potential of a 10% increase, but they haven't quoted it yet, so we don't actually know what that number will be.
No, but based on what we would pay in 2025, the maximum that it could increase is 10%.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to make sure they hadn't already quoted us a 10% increase.
No.
Yeah. Okay. But the potential will be there. Okay. Cool. Questions?
No, I think just rare. I mean, I think this speaks to something that we see in other insurance-like things, but in this case here, there's competition, and it seems to be that that's maybe what helped to bring us into a more rational number. So I certainly love the number there for sure, and I'm glad that's the case. So one question though, are we signing up to 3 or 4 years, or is it we go annually? But they've just committed to a certain thing there. So
It's always annually, so it'll be if we decide to move to Canada Life for 2025, we'll have kind of a blend because we will be obviously won't be able to do this for January 1st, so it'll likely be an April 1st transition to the new benefit plan. So we would get that rate for the rest of 2025, and then we would see a prorated increase for 2026. Should we decide to move the date to January 1st, we may want to leave it at April 1st, much like we do with insurance for March 1st. So we have that flexibility as well.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. That's good information. And yeah, I mean, to your point, it makes sense in some ways to keep it at the April date, but not that you're asking that, but that does make sense to me as well. So thank you.
Yeah, did Sun Life give us the opportunity to go to match it to 10, no higher than 10%?
They offered no rate cap. We can't ask another company to give the same as another company did. So we gave them the same offer that we would to anybody else, but they didn't offer a rate cap.
Okay, good to know. Thanks.
Sean, the 1%, and you say it comes up annually. Is it cheaper staying with Sun Life for one more year at 1% than jumping over to Canada Life?
I think there's always a risk there, right? I think because we're in a marketing year, that's why we got the 1%. I think the next year we would, because we're not in a marketing year, they would kind of have us.
If I'm reading it right, it's still, even at the 1%, it's still cheaper, right? It's $2,400, almost $2,500 cheaper with Canada Life. I got to go around first. I'll come back to you though.
I just think our CEO made a good suggestion there that you move your renewal dates till April 1st from January, because this has always been a problem with some of our things, especially in election years, that council takes over in December, and all of a sudden they got contracts due in January. So
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was just a quick thing. How much, and I don't recall, and maybe you don't recall either, which is totally fine, but how much did we pay the consultants to come up with the assessment, if you will? Just to figure that out, based on why we do it 4 years instead of every year, essentially.
That's just part of our broker agreement. So last year when we tendered out our broker services, this is just a service they offer, that every 4 years or once a council term, they'll go in and do a market assessment and make sure we're competitive.
Thank you. No, and I guess what I was saying is, so do you happen to know roughly how much we paid them for this service to do the marketing side of it?
I'd have to look at their actual booklet because the broker fees are disclosed in it. So offhand, I don't know that number.
Further, anyone? Okay, there's a recommendation that comes along with this item, and it's that committee recommend that council direct staff to instruct did in the suggestion, was the suggestion included to move to April 1st as John had suggested, or is that something that?
No, that's just something that I can work on with Pakeman. There's no
no need direction from us to do that.
No.
That's an okay to go ahead with.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'll start over again then. Thank you for that. That committee recommend that council direct staff to instruct W.E. Pakeman and Associates to switch benefit providers from Sun Life to Canada Life effective 2025 and authorize the mayor and CAO to sign the agreement. I need a mover. Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Martel. Further discussion? All in favor? Of course. All right, good. All right. Oh, wow, the fun one begins. Levy-based capital budget review.
I'll defer to the treasurer. Thank you.
You're on, treasurer.
through the chair. So what you have before you is the budget summary for the levy-based capital projects and also the reserve account balances as of December 31st, 2024, as well as I did do a printout of the 5-year plan for the roads program, just for your reference. So currently, as presented, the levy-based capital expense is listed at just over 3.6 million, and the expenses funded through reserves, grant, debt, and operating surplus are just over 3 million. So an additional $610,860 would be required from levy, debt, or a port dividend to fully fund the current capital expenses. I just also wanted to note that in 2024, the township did not take a dividend from the port, and in 2023, the amount received from the port dividend equated to 563,411. So if the township had taken a similar dividend in 2024, the capital expenses would be fully funded. So I'll just quickly take some notes on some of the capital projects. Some of these do have pre-budget approval. So looking at the recreation truck, which was pre-approved and also paid in 2024, as well as the website revamp has pre-budget approval, and as well as the tandem axle plow truck had pre-budget approval, and as well as the pedestrian crossings. So looking at the roads program, we did compile a list of where the funding is going to be coming from. So the current capital reserve balance about 270,000. The 2025 capital reserve of 241, the CCBF grant, and the remaining balance of the OSIF grant to just over $1 million to allocate to roads. And the managers will be presenting their individual business segments for each project.
Okay, and if we have some questions before we get into the individual ones, I know they're going to want to make the arguments for them, but if there's questions on any of this, we can ask. I want to give the group, a precursor. So my question would be, I have two. Do we know, treasurer, where we are from last year? Yet surplus, deficit, or can we reasonably anticipate where we're at with that? That's my first one. Then I got a quick follow-up after.
The operating surplus from 2024. I can't give you a definite at this time. I don't feel comfortable giving a definite a number at this time, just because we don't have all the information in our system at this time. We're working on getting that completed, so I don't feel comfortable giving you a number. It would be an estimate. That's
okay. I mean, I certainly understand how we would proceed is going to, I mean, if we're starting off with, and I don't think we'd know if we were starting off with an enormous deficit, but if we were starting off with a deficit, we have to budget that deficit in. As we can't budget a deficit, so we would have to include that in, and that would certainly mean sharpening our pencils.
I can say that I don't believe that we would be in that position, so
Okay.
I don't think that that's something that we need to consider.
Okay, so what we do need to consider, if I'm reading this correctly, is that right now from a suggested funding shortfall, we're at a shortfall of 610,860.
That's correct.
If we did everything that's here and nothing else,
Right, and
we would-
if we decided not to use more reserves, I mean, there are options to use some other reserves,
Okay.
some for some projects. So that would definitely lower that amount.
Yep.
That would be needed. for
yeah,
funding.
I certainly have some suggestions there. I think there are further budget discussions. I don't see much else that comes off this. The other question to you, As treasurer, we started out last year around 9 million in reserves. We used a couple million dollars of reserves last year, 2 million of which we bought the ED19 property and the house on the ED19 property for. Reasonable, we used, the industrial park reserve to purchase those future industrial lands. Makes sense that we did that. That's why those numbers would go down. We still have 7 million in reserves. How do you feel about the number that's there, so that I know, if you're making a suggestion? I mean, I know you do what we direct you to do, but we have $7 million, a little over $7 million, I think, in reserves now, or somewhere around that number. How, for a township of our size with the debt load that we have as a treasurer, where does that leave us?
Through the chair, I think the amount that we used in 2024, the amount that was reduced in reserves, that was a heavy program. That was a heavy capital program, and I think kind of moving towards 2025, being a little bit more conservative in the capital program moving forward, just with some other opportunities that the township is looking at. So I don't want to look at depleting a lot of the reserves that we currently have when there's a lot of unknowns in 2025.
But 7 million is a healthy number for a township of our side to have set aside right now with the assets we have.
Absolutely.
We're not.
And especially with the amount of debt that the township has, very minimal. So I think it's a very healthy financial position for the township's in.
I just wanted to make sure we're it's a couple of years in for this group. I think we've done a fantastic job. We've certainly got a lot of work done. We've leveraged some dollars from the port to help us do that, and we've used a little bit of the reserves to buy back ED19. So I just, we were in a good position when we started. I just want to make sure that it's clear we're still in a good position now.
Through the chair, yes. I don't have any concerns with the financial health of the township.
Okay, so I'm going to open. Yeah, I don't have a problem with anything that's included in this. We're going to have more budget discussions of what we want. I just want to make sure that if I'm looking at the group, if there's something that you think is wild and you want taken off, I think that's a discussion. I think we should at least hear what the department heads have to say first before we take anything off. But my concern is that if there's something that's not on there that you wanted added on there in this first budget discussion, it's probably the right time. It probably was the right time before this discussion to have it added on. But I think if there's something that we've missed that needs consideration, now's the time. And this, I think, or at the end of this is probably the most appropriate time so that we can give staff direction to bring us back some more info for iteration number 2 of capital budget. I don't think this is going to pass tonight, unfortunately. But yeah, so let's just leave it there and see if anybody has anything to say. I'm going to start at the other end. John, anything? Okay, Karen? Wani? Joe? Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to have Public Works look into 2 roads that I'd like to continue on Cedar Grove. I'm hoping it's the one that I'm asking from Fraser to Knoll. Does that make sense, where we stopped last year and then we're going to continue? Is that right, Chris?
Should be on the...
Yeah, I am looking
yes.
at Fraser Knoll. Is that the right one? That's okay. Thank you. And I'd like to look at the Pitson Road East for consideration, or a price at least on both of them. Cedar Grove from Fraser Knoll and Pitson Road East of County Road 22, which is the 9 mile.
And if I can jump there just for 1 sec, Deputy Mayor, if that's okay, to the road super Chris, so Pittston Road East 2026 says 384 540. Is that the section that you're talking about, Deputy Mayor?
Pitson Road East, length 2,600 meters.
So 2.6 kilometers. I'm just looking. I can't see Chris. So
And
is that the section that he's talking to? And is that like, that's the quote and that's the plan would be to do it in 2026?
Through the chair, that's correct.
now, is that the price 384 or is my, I should get a ruler, or is it 662?
Through the chair, 384 is the correct number.
Sorry?
384 is the correct number,
Oh, great. Okay,
estimated.
great.
Okay, so then, and so then for the same question then would exist
Thank you.
for the next one, which is the Fraser to Noe Road portion, which would be the continuation of the work that was done this year. I think that's the part that you just asked for,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So
And that's 662. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right.
and those are estimates based on what, Chris?
The length and the amount of asphalt required.
Okay, and that would be a rebuild, not a pad and patch? Because it's shorter period, like it's only 2 kilometers and it's double the price. Well, not double, but
That's correct. That is a resurface.
okay. So you're looking at $1 million.
Yeah.
So are you asking to have those added in for consideration for this year?
I would like to have that consider. I hate to stop on Cedar Grove especially. We did such a great job last year, that one section. I'd like to continue if we can find it. You know, that extra mill somewhere or take something off.
So that would leave us.
I'd like to add both if I may, or if I can get the consent of the table to continue on negotiating this.
What
Cedar Grove from,
if I can look across the table, what did we put into the roads? So is our roads, I don't see 2024, we did 1.8. Is that right? And this year it suggested, no, this is, what did we do? 2028, we did 1.8.
Correct. 2024 was about 1.8 that we did in 2024.
And so this year, the suggestion is that we do 2.1. So it's an increase over last year. Is that right?
No, it should be about 1.2.
Through the chair, if you're looking at.
Yeah, I'm looking at the number that's printed.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you see below, it says future capital projects on the capital funding analysis for 2025, you'll see the 2 roads that were taken out. So that's Middle Street and James Street. So those were proposed in the pre-budget meeting that we had. So when you add those 2, it'll equal the 2.1.
Okay. Which opens a different can of worms for me, but I have no issue with adding things in, knowing full well that we're going to have further discussions and that at some point they may get removed, but I'm totally okay with shifting your priority around a bit. That I have no issue with that, or trying to find the dollars somewhere else if we have to. So I'm okay with the addition. I'm just looking for other speakers to this list. So
Me
are
too.
you done? Sorry, were you finished?
I just want my support on that to continue on.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, to the mayor. So I sort of seconded the idea that Pittston Road East should be done sooner than later. It is pretty bad there, to be honest. But I wasn't sure if we were going to have the discussion today about what would we be contemplating sacrificing. It sounds like that's a later discussion. You're saying? Yeah.
You can do this however you want. I mean, it's ours to give direction. I just think this is what staff brought to us tonight. We haven't heard any business cases. I don't want to delay or belabor this too much tonight. I think we should take it in as information. But if there's something missing from it that we think should be added to it, I think it's worthwhile making sure that it gets added tonight. I don't know if we want to have that full takeaway discussion. I think having the information in front of us for a couple of weeks so we can go home and do our own math on it probably makes more sense than trying to hammer all that out tonight and get it approved in one night. I think we can probably get there the next meeting. By the looks of this, it's pretty simple. So
Yeah, agreed. And I do like the fact we're getting this nice 5-year plan as well, so we can sort of see the balance of it. And you know, in my interpretation would be if we pull stuff into 2025, we got to push an equal amount of dollars out essentially, but or something in that same ballpark or fund it somewhere else. But no, so I thought it was just the Pittston Road. I was on it recently, and I sort of thought like this one should be considered soon. But if it's 2026 because of an indecision we make here, then so be it. But yeah.
So addition of those two, you have no problem with for next discussion. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
To David, I notice on here we have Middle Street section for paving. That's concrete underneath the pavement there now. Is the water lines and sewer lines fine on Middle Street in Cardinal?
Through the mayor, to Councillor Smale, the section that's being proposed on Middle Street would be the section between John Street and James. The section of Middle Street between John and Dundas Street is old infrastructure and would likely need to be replaced before you undertook resurfacing. That is correct that it's concrete. And if I may, since I have the speaker, it might be easier to work through the business cases because we're bringing up stuff in the business case that we could have a more fulsome discussion at that time if that's okay, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I think we'll get there, but I think if councillors want to have a first go while the whole item is in front of them instead of the individual ones, I think that's worth warranting, and then we'll nail it down in the individual cases. You happy with the answer for now? Yeah, Karen. Good. John? No, you're good. Okay, so only two potential additions. I think you can throw both those roads in, and then we'll have a further go. And I don't think I had any notes either. So there's no recommendation. That's an information one. So then we're going to move on to the draft fire department budget. Am I correct in that? Yeah. All right. And I believe Chief Moore, that puts you on the hot seat.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Fun.
So this business case recommends the issuance of an RFP to facilitate the purchase of a new frontline pumper to replace current frontline pumper number 1. Significant savings may be realized if we are able to secure a stock truck currently in production versus a traditional build-to-order purchase. The need for the truck replacement is based on Fire Underwriters Survey Service Schedule, which is 20 years of frontline service. An apparatus can then remain in service for second line duty for 5 years, followed by an additional 5 in reserve. So technically we could get 30 years out of a fire truck, but its service would just kind of move to the back burner. It's not going to be first out the door for 30 years. Pumper 1 has spent some time out of service in recent years. I believe Councillor Ward asked that question. Primarily waiting for parts. It just has a unique chassis that uses some non-standard parts that aren't stocked locally. So usually it gets on the hoist and we have to wait for parts to come from other parts of the country. So under the options, option number 1, we can purchase a build-to-order truck to be delivered in 2027. This would maximize the amount of in-service time by the existing unit, but increase the cost of replacement. I think proposals for 2027 delivery would be very difficult to obtain within the current market. Option 2 was purchase a truck using canoe procurement program. Committee members identified that this option restricts proposals to only those manufacturers participating in the program. I believe there's only one Canadian manufacturer in that program. Option 3, issue an RFP for a pumper listing the minimum required specifications along with a flexible delivery schedule that would allow all manufacturers an opportunity to submit a proposal for consideration. So financial benefits, the savings achieved by purchasing now. New emission standards are passed and will take effect on vehicles for 2027. The technology has not been proven in the field and may be unreliable and costly to maintain. And the frontline pumper purchase could be debentured for up to a 10-year period to reduce the taxation burden in a single year. Also, a benefit early replacement will extend the timeline in between the next frontline pumper purchase would be pumper 4 in 2030. A risk analysis option 3 provides the greatest flexibility and potential to attract proposals from a wider range of manufacturers to locate a pumper with features that satisfy the needs of the fire department. With a recommendation that committee recommends that council include the deposit for purchase of a fire department pumper in the 2025 budget and direct staff to bring a recommendation to the February council meeting. Implementation plan, we'll do an RFQ Q1 and bring a recommendation to the February council meeting on the award of a new frontline pumper.
Thank you, Chief. Couple of quick questions just to help guide the discussion. The idea would be that it would go in service in 2025 or 2026.
My plan is to issue an RFP that has a open delivery schedule anytime from Q2 of this year to Q4 2027. So manufacturers are open to give us whatever delivery schedule is available.
Okay, so we're not replacing one before it needs to be replaced. We're just getting this flexibility and making sure that we get our order in as quick as possible.
Correct, but I suspect the least expensive option is probably going to be a sooner purchase.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. It totally does. Things are escalating they can be. It'll be interesting to see. The argument for in the financial and non-financial benefits is significant savings by purchasing now. It certainly that makes sense with the rates of inflation. Things have continue to go up. The next part I'm a little unclear, or like the next part's a little unclear to me. New emission standards are passed and take effect for vehicles in 2027. The technology has not been proven in the field and may be unreliable. Do we have information that's not included in this that suggests that the technology coming forward isn't going to work? Or is that just like an opinion?
Through the chair, that's based on the existing, I can't remember when the DEF technology came in and the first generation of diesel particulate filters. And there was a lot of bugs to work through when that system came out. So I've been told that this system, they use filters that are twice the size of the existing filters. And one manufacturer mentioned a separate 40-volt electrical system. So I think there's going to be a lot of challenges when these come out, and it's just unproven. So I don't want to be the first model year.
Fair enough. And the new emission standards. So are the standards set in stone, or is that something that could fluctuate as, we're potentially about to see a different federal government that could potentially have different standards than the last one. Is that something that could fluctuate, or is that, you think that that's set in stone and something that we need to move forward with?
I believe those standards are set by the EPA in the US. So I'm pretty sure they're going to be set in stone.
That's what we're going to see.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, because I have no clue and I need that information to make decisions. So good. All right. Open for discussion.
I think I started that conversation on Canoe, so I'm not trying to complicate things, but I like the opportunity of leaving that door open as well as to your point, you're going to look for some quotes and also compare that against the Canoe site, which I think sounds reasonable to me. So I'd be in favor of putting it out for an RFP and figuring out from there where we go. That's probably not for Danford to ask. I'll ask at the end of during inquiries and notices of motion later on, actually, for the rest of that conversation. So, okay, good.
I just have one that if, what happens if, what's deposit? You said we need a deposit. You know the amount of deposit we need?
Through the chair, I had originally put 70,000 in as a deposit based on some conversations I had with some of the canoe procurement people involved in that program. I guess really until we see what the manufacturers are offered, that's just a shot in the dark.
Okay.
And nothing, your worship, ready to support the recommendation?
Um, uh, the only, there's no, I know, watching some of the announcements around us when it comes to support that's been given for like cleaning apparatus and support to the different fire departments that have been offered around. And we haven't, I don't think we hit on any of those applications this time. Is there anything, and I don't think there is, but I've got to ask the question, is there anything that helps support in the purchase of vehicles like this? Ever, or no?
Not that I'm aware of, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. And yeah, all right. And you don't trust in the first year stuff, which I can't say I blame you either. I don't, if it's my house on fire, I don't want that truck breaking down on the way there either. So certainly I think this group is highly supportive of our fire department and making sure they have, the most not the most up to date, but up to date equipment. And, I certainly believe in that. So Chris, did you move a recommendation? No, nobody's moved it yet, right? There was no, it was just read, but it wasn't moved. All right. So the committee recommends that council include the deposit for the purchase of the fire department pumper in the 2025 budget and direct staff to bring a recommendation to the February council meeting. So I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councilor Martel, seconded by Councilor Ward. Further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Done. Okay. Okay. I think I'm just I need a mover though to call a 5-minute break. I'm gonna call a 5-minute break. Pee break. Chris moves. Steve seconds. All in favor? Good. Take a 5-minute breather. Yeah. All right. So do I need to call us back to order or no? So just calling the meeting back to order. Do I need a mover to move on or no? Okay. So moving back to order. All right. So that makes us on. I'm going to look to the clerk again though, so I make sure that I got this correct. It's item G number 1, correct? All right. And Mike, I believe you're going to speak to that. So
Yes,
the
I
floor,
will.
floor is yours for the next 3.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the complete list for the capital projects were submitted, and these are the top 3 priorities, but in no order. So the first one, these are all 3 business cases. The Johnstown play structure, it's for the replacement of the existing play structure that is located in Johnstown. The system or the unit that is there now is currently 20 years old and has definitely shown signs of deterioration and is in desperate need of replacement. Of the parks that we have, Johnstown by far is the busiest, not only because of our day camp and our swimming program, but because of the utilization of the ballparks from May through to August. So it is 2 to 1 as far as usage compared to, say, the Cardinal one. Or even the one down at the waterfront. So there definitely is a need to have it replaced. The business need, the proposed budget allocation will allow for the complete replacement. Now, this is just the play structure itself. The actual swing sets that are there are still in good shape and meet the qualifications of and standards. So there's no issues with those. The existing unit would be replaced with a new, modern, safe, and accessible play structure. The current play structure that is there right now is not 100% accessible for the handicapped because it is pea stone gravel that is there right now. So it's hard for wheelchair access and what have you. Putting a new one in, we would remove the pea stone gravel and it would be a different base, similar to the base that is at the play structure down at the waterfront that we put in with the Giant Tiger play structure. So that's basically it. The risk, my recommendation is that if council decides to put this off until next year, that we would remove the play structure that is there, and there wouldn't be a play structure for this summer. Not to put pressure on anyone, but it's just, it's safer to have nothing than to have the existing one that is there. So the recommendation is to proceed with issuing a tender, which would be through our, our canoe procurement program. And we would issue the tender for that through that program.
Okay. Quick question, two quick questions, Mike. In reference to to Giant Tiger, I know they helped us with the inclusive or the accessible one in Cardinal. Have you had any conversations with them to see if there's any interest on their part to do another one?
No, I haven't had any conversations with them or with the South Edwardsburg Rec Association.
Okay, and we're in a budget discussion and we're talking about safety, and the play structure is not roped off, cordoned off. It was used last year.
We've made some modifications to the existing slide that's there. The issue is that the slide is no longer manufactured. The unit is 20 years old. So we did some modifications for it to last through the end of the season.
Okay. All right. I'll leave it at that. I'll open it. I mean, I don't see this going anywhere. Like, as far as coming out of it, we don't need to move the recommendation to include it in the budget yet, unless there's the will to do so, correct? It just stays in.
Yeah, it just stays there for future consideration.
Are you looking, I mean, we gave the approval to go ahead with the pumper discussion. I don't suspect that that's coming back out. We moved the recommendation. It hasn't been approved by council yet, but we moved the recommendation. These are probably all going to come with recommendations. Are we expected to move the next 10 items with recommendations?
No, some of the other, the Public Works one, there's kind of three options as far as status quo, which is do nothing, or defer, or include in the discussion. So this is, there's a recommendation to issue a tender, but you can defer until the next capital budget meeting if you like.
And can we just receive it as information until the next discussion?
Yes.
Unless somebody chooses to move
Yes.
a recommendation further? Because I think if we have to get down into the dirty about all of these tonight, we're going to be here for quite a while. There's 10 more items. If we give a 5-minute or a 4-minute presentation on one, that's another hour. And then we have to, 7 people that have to weigh in and discuss each one. And there's some of them that are going to require more conversation than others. If we're expected to move recommendations tonight, we'll be here for a couple more hours. Is that the will?
No, we don't have to move recommendations tonight. We have the other capital budget meeting. It's just, would you like this for further discussion, or is it immediate deferral at the table?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. So
Are we on the,
we're just
play
on the
structure?
play. We're just on the play structure for for quick
right now?
discussion. Yeah.
Okay. Mike, have you, duly chair to the facility manager, have you looked into asking, just not only, Giant Tiger, but, Greenfield, Jones Israel, those kind of people, even Sarah, of looking at some,
Through
Financial.
the chair to the deputy mayor, no, I haven't spoken to any organization or company.
okay.
Uh,
And you're saying that you're gonna, if we don't do something this year, you're gonna close the play structure down? Is it because of just the slide? Is that the biggest one?
Through the chair to the deputy mayor, so the larger slide, so the Cardinal play structure that is at the pool and the one that is at the Johnstown Pool are identical. They were both purchased at the same time and installed back 20 years ago. 2 years ago, we replaced the slide, the smaller slide on the Cardinal one, and it cost $15,000 just for the one slide. Because it had to be reformed, because they don't make that model of structure anymore. So if we want to replace the two existing slides that are there, we're looking at close to $30,000 just to replace the slides.
But is that what's holding us back? Like if we don't replace these slides, we're gonna have to close the play structure down this year?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm going to look to the CAO again. I can't speak for the group, but in listening to the original discussion we had about the shortfall of 610, 860, nobody raised concerns about any of these items, right? Nobody went crazy about them. I know we're hearing the recommendation, we're hearing the business case behind them, and I want the staff to present the business cases. I agree that they should present them. Can we just have Mr. Spencer present the three? Would you be okay with that at the same time? And if somebody wants to remove one of them, remove it. Otherwise, everything just is assumed to stay in to the next discussion. That might expedite this process just a little bit.
That's fine.
Okay. Do you want to continue with the next two then, Mike, as well, the next two business cases? And then I'll just let anybody speak to either one of them if they feel that they want to pull them out. Otherwise, I'm just going to consider that they're left in for further discussion.
Sure. No,
Okay.
that's fine. Yeah.
All right.
G number 2 is the Johnstown Pool piping, and it's for the recommendations for the retrofitting of the piping at the pool. The current piping system is over 40 years old and has started to see some major deficiencies that we've had. There are, excuse me, 2 existing circulation systems on the far side that are inoperable right now. So the pool itself is not functioning at 100% capacity. We redid this in Johnstown, or sorry, in Cardinal last year, 2 years ago, sorry, in phase 1. The difference between the two pools is the Cardinal pool, we changed the whole filtration system inside the pump room. That's not required at the Johnstown facility. We did that about 8 years ago. We put a new filtration system in. So basically what you're doing is doing the skimmer baskets. You're doing the complete line. So digging up the entire pool on the outside perimeter and doing all the piping that goes back into the pump house. And then you're also replacing the 2 existing lifeguard chairs that are there. So that is number 2. And then number 3, excuse me, is replacing the dehumidifier at the Spencer Arena. In 2022, we purchased a new dehumidifier. The rink has had 2 dehumidifiers running. Last year, the oldest one, which is 20 years old, broke down, and because it happened during the season, during the cold time, there really wasn't a need to have to replace it. What we're finding though is the spring and the fall weather is starting to continue in a warmer cycle as opposed to colder. And we really found it hard this fall, trying to get the condensation out of the rink, utilizing just the single unit itself. I am working with Simcoe Refrigeration. There are some potential possibilities that we may get a used one. I've got a price on the new one, but we have in the past from Simcoe Refrigeration purchased used equipment from them. 6-7 years ago, we put a 50 horse compressor in to the Spencer rink that was used at the time and has been working fine. So there is an option potentially to get a used one. I met with Simcoe Refrigeration on Thursday of last week, but there's no guarantee.
Sure.
It all depends what other arenas are recycling some of their units in and out. So that is an option as well that I am trying to work with our rep with Simcoe. And again, the purchase of this would be through the the canoe procure policy, Simcoe Refrigeration is associated with that program.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. Anyone wish to, I think we all understand the importance of these. Anyone wish to speak to, the potential of removing them? If not, let's leave them in and we'll have a further discussion about it at the next go around, if everybody's amenable to that. Just nodding. Good. Okay. All right. So then we can move to, thank you, Mr. Spencer, for presentations on those. They'll all make it through to case 2. I know if there are further questions, this group may ask some between now and the next meeting via email or whatever, so that you'll have,
Sure, no
if
problem at
there's,
all.
more information that's needed, then it'll be available, right?
No problem.
Okay. This one we may have to go one by one. I think that there are a couple of options in some of them, but no, yeah, right. Okay, so who is Public Works Director bringing forward? Director of Operations,
Roads Manager will bring the
Roads
first
Manager. All right,
capital road
Chris, the floor is yours.
Thank you through the chair. Tonight's business case is a capital roads program. The proposed program utilizes 3 different types of treatment techniques. Partial depth patching for 6,700 meters, asphalt resurfacing for 162 meters, and reconstruction for 560 meters. So the township has 123 kilometers of paved surface, and we should be making improvements to at least 6.15 kilometers of road per year to maintain present service levels. The 2025 program aims to make improvements on 7.42 kilometers of roadway. So options and solutions analysis, option 1, remain status quo. Option 2, complete 7.42 kilometers of asphalt improvements using combination of reconstruction, resurfacing, and partial depth patching. Option 3, include any additional roads to the proposed program. Financial and non-financial benefits. Option 1, no immediate capital investment and no benefit. Option 2, partial depth patching program, Browsville Road, Colonel Road, Hurley Road, and Gooden Road for 6,700 meters. The next one would be resurfacing program for Riley Road and Henderson Road, and that's a length of 162 meters. And the reconstruction program is for South Street, Water Street, and Waddell Street for 560 meters. And then optional additional roadways to consider, James Street, and then Middle Street from James to John. Risk analysis, option 1, doing nothing will further deteriorate the assets and create a larger backlog in years to come. Option 2, achieves the objective of maintaining the overall road condition, network conditions in a fair condition. Option 3, achieves the objective of maintaining the overall road condition network in a fair condition. Recommendation, the committee recommends that council include the proposed road program, option number 2, for consideration into the 2025 budget. The implementation plan, Q1, prepare and issue a tender. Q2, award work subject to council approval. And Q2 and 3, work schedule and complete.
Good. Thank you, Chris. A couple of real quick questions before we go. One is a technical question on what exactly partial depth patching is.
That would be that is a pad and patch. So for example, Browsville Road has a lot of wheel ruts in the surface, so that would fill those ruts in and provide a little surface over top, removing cracking and existing cracking.
What kind of longevity do you get out of partial patching?
You can get about 7 to 10 years out of that before you actually have to do something, should do something else.
Okay, and the bulk of what we're doing, it's almost 6,000 meters of it is that, or maybe just over 6,000 meters of it is that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And I did have another, and this is a speculative question again, and we are going to find ourselves again in a federal, potentially a provincial one as well, but a federal election for sure. I know all of these prices would include carbon tax. Would we see, I mean, there's a substantial amount of money that is applied in carbon taxing. So, and I know it affects everything from vehicles to roads, but we're certainly putting a chunk of money in roads. Is there any bit thought, put into that at all? Post-election that pricing on this might be different?
Yes, through the chair, yes. Typically, I use the fuel pricing with the fuel changing, prices change often at the time of tender. If, for example, if it's $150 or $100.50 a liter, technically the asphalt price would potentially could be $150 a ton, plus or minus.
Okay. I guess my thought is that prepare and issuing a tender. I mean, that maybe that's something we can discuss CAO wise, but if there's an election in Q2 and the idea is that a carbon tax is going to be part of that election, it certainly would benefit our ratepayer if carbon tax went away, and I think these prices would be cheaper. So I know we can't delay those projects, but the pricing of those projects might look a lot different if there is. I'll ask you if there's any possibility to that.
I mean, that's always an option to defer as far as the tender, to see if there's any change in pricing. I guess what I would throw back would be, just because there's election on that doesn't mean that the private sector is going to follow right away with reducing their costs.
So excuse my ignorance on this. So in a tender, when the contract is awarded and it's priced out, would it show the carbon tax? And would it be reasonable to ask if the carbon tax disappears that part of the contract is forgiven?
I think that's something that can be asked, but the carbon tax isn't split out in the individual tender, because it's just considered a part of the cost of product.
If we know the percentage of it, would it be reasonable to have as part of it? I mean, we're going to lose. It's a huge amount of money that could change. And if we issue a tender in March and there's a change of government and the carbon tax is canceled 2 months later, and we've agreed to a tender and accepted a tender in March, and I mean, we're not talking a couple of $1,000s, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars in million dollar projects. It's 10% is $100,000 on a million project. It's a huge amount of money.
We can see if that can be written into the tender, as far as the breakdown would include any carbon tax pricing in the quote, because they would have to give a quote by component on what they supply to the project. So then we could.
They've probably thought of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. They probably thought of that already, though. Yeah. Fair enough. I just think that in all of these things, it could make a big difference as we move forward. I know I've addressed it with you before about, the effect of carbon tax and what it has on our ratepayers. And certainly in the roads project, because it might mean paving another road if we have that savings. It might actually amount to paving another road. Does anybody, I know we've added 2 roads to it already at the deputy mayor's ask. Is there anybody that wants to add anything to this or remove anything from it? Okay, then move on to the next one.
So the next one is the capital sidewalk program. The program proposes to replace an existing asphalt sidewalk of 750 meters, replace existing concrete sidewalks at 180 meters, and extend 30-meter section of concrete sidewalk. The sidewalk network is assessed every year for distresses and hazards. For slips, trips, fall hazards are leading candidate for insurance claims, performing regular inspection, repairs, and replacement to help mitigate claims. The program proposes a replacement existing asphalt sidewalk, replace existing concrete sidewalks, and extend the section of concrete sidewalk. So options or solutions analysis, option 1, remain status quo. Option 2, complete the proposed program. Option 3, service level change considerations. So financial and non-financial benefits. Option 1, lowest cost, however, not resolving any issues. Option 2, asphalt sidewalk program is County Road 2, basically from St. Lawrence Street to the east end. Highway 2. Concrete replacement, Waddell Street and South Street for totaling 180 meters. New concrete sidewalk, Dundas Street and County Road 2 for 30 meters. And option 3, level service change consideration, removal or material change of sidewalk. So we have County Road 2 at 750 meters, remove asphalt and replace with stone dust. County Road 2 for 750 meters, remove sidewalk completely. Waddell Street for 130 meters and remove sidewalk completely. So the risk analysis, option 1, does not address the distress hazards and potential increase in liability and claims. Option 2, proceeding with this option achieves the objective of maintaining the overall sidewalk condition network in a fair condition. Option 3, proceeding with this option reduces the number of sidewalk assets. However, on County Road 2 in particular, you would be routing pedestrians to the side of a busy roadway. So the recommendation, that committee recommends that council include the proposed sidewalk program, option 2, for consideration into the 2025 budget. The implementation plan in Q2, receiving quotes and award of work, and Q3, the completion of work.
Thanks again, Chris. I'm going to open this one for discussion. Does anybody want to speak to it? Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Chris. On this one, just on the business need, I just wanted to make sure I understood, because I want to make sure what I heard. So the slip, strips, and falls hazards are a leading candidate for insurance claims or for our insurance claims? I'm trying to figure out if we had a lot of claims internally, or is this just more of a, which is fine, a general statement to the sidewalk side of things?
We, through the chair, we have had claims in the past. I do not know at this time where they're at, but I do know we've had claims in the past.
Okay, thank you very much. And so, yeah, I mean, I see this, and I mean, the fact is, you know, I've seen the sidewalks in question, and I'm not, well, we'll have to have a conversation when we get to that point, I guess, next during the budget time itself, but I don't think we want to be reducing the services, in my opinion, as far as that goes. So anyways, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. That's all I had.
Anyone? Steve, anything? No? Guys? Lottie?
Chris, the sidewalk on Waddell Street, was it replaced like how many years ago? Would Dave maybe know?
Through the mayor to Councillor Smale, I would think that that was probably around 15 years ago. That may have been replaced. Waddell Street, for instance, that concrete sidewalk, the main purpose for that was it was the main route to the former Benson school. So it's that's why it was instituted in the first place. So that's part of the reason why the suggestion is that you could look to remove that and just have a wider paved surface as opposed to what you would consider that standard dedicated sidewalk.
Thank you, David. I agree with you.
That put it more like what we see on Walker Street then?
Through the mayor. So, yeah, somewhat. You would have a little bit of a barrier at the edge, but then it would be you'd have a wider paved surface that you could either utilize for parking, or you still have the option that you could do some line painting that sort of delineates that as a sidewalk. It's just same level, same surface type. And then you could, for winter operations, you would just put it as a seasonal sidewalk, and that it's not maintained during the winter. And you have that as a little bit of a snow storage area.
Okay. And the assurity is that when Walker Street gets redone, that it would go to the full width, including where the sidewalk is now, not just what the pavement is now, and lose the sidewalk.
So just for clarity for Waddell, yes, that would be you would take the area of the existing concrete sidewalk, remove that, and just have that whole area an asphalt surface.
Okay. I'm not against that idea either.
We've done it before. We moved sidewalk.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Karen, John, anything to add on this one? All right. Nobody's saying take it out. So from a direction standpoint, I'm looking both the COO and Chris. From a direction standpoint on this one, there's a nodding of heads and liking that possibility of removing that sidewalk. Is that something that we give direction to now, and we'd see a more accurate pricing with the total number on this one when it comes to us again next time? Or how would you like us to proceed with this one? Because I get the idea that, the removal of the sidewalk on Waddell probably sounds right. So that would reduce your budget by 35,000, 34,000. But it may increase your paving cost. I don't know how you've done it. So
yeah, I think through the mayor, Waddell Street, for instance, it really is subject to whether Waddell Street, the entire storm sewer and asphalt work proceeds. If that was not to proceed, we wouldn't touch the sidewalk. It's not in, but it's as part of that reconstruction of Waddell Street, we're going to have to remove that sidewalk. So it's just a matter of, at that time, we wouldn't replace it with the traditional. We would just keep it a paved surface. So
Okay.
there would be some cost savings, but it is sort of dependent on what happens with the main part of Waddell,
okay.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, sort of. The overall budget for the sidewalks is 168 or something like that. Are you anticipating by removing the 130 meter section that it would be fair to say that there will be a reduction of 34,000 then overall in the sidewalk budget portion of this discussion?
Through the mayor, yeah, I believe we anticipate in the contract that the removals portion of that would be about 5,000. I think it's 39,000. Sorry, I'm going off memory. I don't have it
You're
right in
right.
front of me.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're probably looking around that 30 to 34,000 reduction.
Okay, so you'd go from 168 to roughly 134.5, something in that. We would definitely see a little reduction. So we've cut out some of that 610 that was the original number by doing that. So still looking around the table, does everybody want that removal of what else? Like,
Don't need it.
so the options are remain status quo, complete the proposed program under the under the listed financial section, service level change. The recommendation is proceeding with this option achieves option 2. Option 2 shows what L in there. I just heard you say take what L out. So number 2 without what L in it, is that the idea?
So through the mayor, yes, I would, I would, from what I'm getting around the table for capital budget number 2, we would have a reduction of about 34,000 on the sidewalk ask and leave everything else status quo.
Okay, so with hearing what we've heard, then we'll just see a different option then for next time instead of having to move one of these ones?
I think you would see a different, you'd see the different number.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so we'll wait for that then. Is everyone okay with that? All right, so then this should be fun. The roadside mower attachment. Chris, do you want to speak to that? And I don't I don't know if you need to read that. We should have already read the document word for word. I don't know that you need to read it back to us. Just give us a high level, please.
Okay. So thank you through the chair. The roadside mower has reached its established useful life. The unit maintains approximately 280 kilometers of rural roads. Typically, seasonal mowing is done between May and October, and grass areas are done within the township right of ways. Useful life of an asset is 2 to 3 years based on historical trends. Recent replacements were in 2016, 2020, 2022, and now due in 2025. Factors that lead to shortness of life are steep inclines, rough terrain, and hidden materials in the longer grass. This creates additional wear on parts and additional downtime. So options and solution analysis. Option 1, remain status quo. Option 2, replace the existing mower and attachment with similar model. Option 3, tender for third-party services. Option 4, surface level change. So financial and non-financial benefits. The mower attachment has operated for 1,243 hours since 2022. So the in-house operating and capital on a 3-year cycle was $135,144. The external cost on a 3-year cycle potentially would be $149,160. So that's an in-house savings on a 2-year cycle of $17,538, and on a 3-year cycle, $14,016. Financial and non-financial benefits. Option 1, the cost would cover under the operating portion of the 2025 budget and be lower in comparison to option 2 and 3. Higher upfront cost, providing a better return on investment. No capital investment. Annual operating costs would increase based on the same operation hours, and potential to reduce operating depending on service level changes. Option 4. Risk analysis. Option 1, high cost for shortest return. Option 2, best return in shortage range and minimize chances of downtime. Option 3, highest cost, loss of some control and would negatively impact staff morale. And option 4, increased risk of incidents involving vehicles and animals. Recommendation, that committee recommends that council include the budget of the roadside mower attachment for consideration in 2025 budget. Implementation, a mower would be ordered, delivered, and set up initial training in advance of the 2025 roadside mowing season.
Good. Thanks, Chris. The numbers that you're showing in the financial and non-financial benefits portion, they're based on 22, 23, and 24. The 3-year total there, that's based on what the total expenses were for those 3 years,
That's correct.
right? And, okay, and if we had have done it through external at 50, at 120 per hour, it's based on the amount of hours that are shown in each one of those years?
Correct.
Right? That's true? Okay. And the only other question is, we're 100 less hours in 24 than we were 22. What's the why?
Through the mayor, additional downtime with repair to the mower. I can comfortably say through my tenure with the organization, at least in that public works end of it, 2 seasons of operation with the roadside mower is it shows an extreme benefit or an extreme value to the ratepayer. When you try to push it to that 3rd season, it's just getting wore out, and we're investing dollars in that to keep that operational for that additional season, as opposed to looking at potentially doing 2 full seasons and then having a replacement ready to go in that end of it. And that's just trend, track record, what we're seeing all over, just due to the rural road right-of-ways are narrower, the ditches are steeper, and we're asking that unit to put a lot of stress on some of those key points. And I think that in a number of cases, the residents appreciate the service of going what I would call fence line to fence line. It comes at a cost. So
Would there be a large reduction if it wasn't, and I think I read it in here somewhere, that it wasn't fence line to fence line, that it was the 1 or 2 strip versus the fence line to fence line? Because I think I read something about bees and pollinators or something. Yep. Yeah. Just want to speak to it.
So I would say that you could potentially do 3 seasons if you weren't going fence line to fence line. I think that there would be less wear and tear on the unit. In that regard, you likely have the potential for additional complaints from residents that have been accustomed to a fence line to fence line. As we had talked about, I think over the last couple of years with the a monarch butterfly restoration program, like there may be some opportunity there that you're establishing that breeding ground for monarchs to return as a potential option.
You outlined issues with that, right? I think you spoke to us as to why monarchs isn't a good idea on some of our rural roads, though.
This was an extension we did a few years ago, going from fence line to fence line. For years, the township always just mowed two trips around, one width of the mower, and then we started mowing down in. It is, if you go over side roads, it's hard in the mower that 2nd trip down there. There's a lot of stones and stumps and stuff in there that you get into. Plus, it's hard on the tractor because you get some bad spots in there that he's got to get into there. Like we had a presentation, previous council, on this flowers and stuff planted along roadsides.
Milkweed, right?
There and stuff for monarch butterflies and stuff that you're going to gain. Some people are going to be happy, other people aren't going to be happy with it. But
what was you outlined something about the issue with milkweed, though, didn't you? Milkweed and corn don't go together or something like that?
Milkweed, a hard weed to get rid of. The worst part is in the hayfields, because you can't spray it in the hayfields. Cornfields, you can get rid of it, but you get it spread along the fence, in the fence rows, and I'm growing an alfalfa field there. In a year's time, it can destroy the alfalfa field, because I can't spray for the milkweed and the alfalfa. The only way I can get rid of it is rotate the crop out into corn or soybeans or something to get rid of it. So like the dairy farmers that want to grow their alfalfa, they're not going to be happy if you got a whole bunch of milkweed planted along the ditches. So
I knew we'd had that discussion somewhere along the way before, and there was a reason why it wasn't such a great idea, but I couldn't remember what it was. Okay, I know you're passionate about this one.
Well, no, I'm not that passionate, but I don't see where's the new one? Where's the price of the new one? Am I missing it? What page is it on?
The budget has 25,000 in there for the replacement of a new one. for a new one.
25,000?
Yeah.
Okay. So what is our the old one now is what, a 2023? Seeing this 2 years old?
I believe it's a 2022.
Okay, 2022. What's it worth in a trade-in?
I would say minimal without some in repair investment. It may be worthwhile to sort of keep that unit as it is as a spare.
Don't say spare.
Well, for first round, or you can actually declare it surplus and see what you can get for it. I would say that you will not get very much with respect to it in a trade-in. You might get something at an auction.
Okay, I just have a hard to figure this out. We have a 2-year-old piece of machinery because it's 2025, but we haven't used it this year, so it's 2 years old. It's worth $25,000. And last year we put in $17,000 in it. That's really spooky. That doesn't make me feel warm and fuzzy at all.
Yeah, so just to correct the deputy mayor, it's 2022, so it was used in the 2022 season,
Right.
the 2023 season,
Okay.
and the 2024 season.
Okay.
So 3
I'll
seasons.
take that back.
not
3 years.
2.
Thank
So,
you.
correct.
Yeah, thank you. But again, it's worth 25 grand for a new one or budget, and we put 17,000 in it last year alone. I don't know what we did in 2023 or 2022. Maybe we put enough in to buy 2. I don't know. But I know this year was 17,000. It's hard for me to swallow. I like the idea about just the one, don't go down into the ditches. Just do the one side, like John said, Mr. Hunter said, and don't go down into it that second swath. Anyways, my feelings is I like to keep it for one more year. That's just my thought for tonight.
So your thought is to not replace it?
Not to replace it, no.
Okay, so we spent 17,000 on it again last year. We're going to spend that much again on it again this year?
Through the mayor, if the option is not to replace it and the plan is to operate it as it is, I guess the item is what is the upset limit of expense you're willing to see on that particular unit before it's set aside and the ditches, the roadsides are not mowed.
Okay. Understood. Does anybody else want to speak to this?
I think I have far more questions than I should probably ask, but anyways,
We do have
first,
do have many more
yeah, I know.
things, right?
So I guess the first question I'm going to ask, and I know I don't feel like I'm jumping ahead, but I guess I am kind of, is this the kind of item that can become a repair in-house potentially if we're looking at this in a different way, and would that save us money on the cost of the repairs?
Through the chair to Councilor Ward, potentially yes. A lot of downtime is parts, like everything else. You wait for parts. A lot of welding that has to be done on that. Usually that goes outside. Certified welder will do that. That's a lot. Most of the repairs are welders and replacing bearings.
I'm just jumping in before somebody else jumps in. I'm just kidding. If you want to speak, you can. But and the reason I'm saying that is because it's one of these things where it's and I get it. It becomes a parts conversation, availability of operating conversation. If we had, you know, two of them at a time at any given time, and we were disposing of them at a 2-year in a functioning manner, that sounds like it's something that could be. It could be something that maybe can be found a way to work, or am I off key on that one?
So if we were to get a new unit, the old unit, so if we're going to use the we are going to use the new unit. Potentially, if it goes down, we have the second unit to use, so you're eliminating your downtime for the time to get it repaired. So we're basically losing downtime.
Just one last question then is, when we're talking about the new one, is it the same sort of model, or is it, you know, how do I say this? Would it have some common parts in it versus the one we have in today?
At this time, we're looking at pricing for the existing unit we have now and other options. There are units out there that are close to what we have now. I would imagine, and I don't know this, I don't design these things. They should be pretty close to manufactured spec.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna take that back. I'll go along with keeping it in this budget for a new one this year, and we sell the one that we put 17,000 in for surplus.
Sorry, that alleviates anybody who wants to take it out of this year's budget portion. Does anybody else want to weigh in on this at this point? No, we're going to leave it in there for now, right? Okay. All right, then I think we can move on to the structural wall repair portion.
Sorry, I don't like people's mind.
Thank you. I prefer that too.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Structural repair of Bay 5 at the Cardinal Public Works Garage. So really the options are right now, we have the area shored up temporarily. So you can continue. There would be obviously a cost with maintaining that shoring in there for an extended period of time. Because we do have a contractor's shoring equipment that's holding that up. We could look at making a portion of that building off limits, cordoned it off. And really the other two options are complete the structural repair. And really the other option is an added partial wall that should mitigate the chances of a reoccurrence. What we've determined is that over time we store the asphalt in Bay 5, especially during the winter time, so that it's a little more usable if we're going to apply that onto the road surface. And what's happened over time is it's ended up getting pushed up against that back wall, not necessarily being noticed right off the bat, and in the end has pushed that out. We think that option 3 with that added partial wall is that barrier that, you know, it's going to be a lot more expensive if we need to look at repairing a partial wall than an actual load-bearing structural wall moving forward. So the recommendation is to proceed with the structural repair, adding that partial wall and doing some of those cement touch-ups in that portion of the bay. While we're doing some of that work, it just there's just some efficiencies that way. So I'll certainly answer any questions you may have.
Sure. With a partial wall, are you looking at something like a landscape company has, that they keep things contained in their yards, like, like a couple of cement things? Are you talking about a full pinned and yeah.
Yeah, through the mayor, I would say it would be anchored into the floor more either most likely with that structural repair on the load-bearing wall, we're probably going to have to pour a partial wall. So there's probably the opportunity to make sure that that's formed and pour that partial wall sort of at the same time. It could be a block partial wall, or it could be potentially like 3 Jersey barriers, but I think the wall, a U-shaped wall, is the best approach.
Certainly the building needs to be shored up. There's no debating that. It's, it certainly was last year and potentially longer than last year. That area's been that way, and certainly no doubt that building needs to be repaired. I'm not convinced on option 3 portion of it, but I have zero doubt that shoring it up and getting it back to at least a normal standard is we have a responsibility to do that. Discussion about removal of it, or is it okay to keep it in, or does anybody want to see anything taken out of it? Or
Yes, Mr. Mayor, on that's on number 5, Bay 5, Dave. And if it is the rest of the building okay, except for pretty much the structure, pretty much except for Bay 5?
Yeah, through the mayor to the deputy mayor, we've had a structural engineer do that assessment, and we would certainly say that the remainder of the structure has a pretty good useful life remaining. It is just mainly that damage area. We may have to look at extending some additional support on that east wall at that corner, but generally it's in pretty good shape. It's 2x6 stud walls with at 24-inch centers, so we'll probably have to do a little bit more reinforcement in that regard. But
okay, so and actually, yeah, I like to keep it in. I mean, for 75 grand, I think it's money well spent. It's going to save our building, and you know, we can continue on using it. So I'm happy. Thanks.
anything, John?
I think it should be kept in all right. I just kind of question the additional wall at 25,000 for the other support wall. I think what you were referring to is the portable concrete blocks, the same as we use in the farm for our silage and one thing and another. They wouldn't be near $25,000. You'd need about 3 of them across there, and there'd certainly be no reason for anybody to run a loader that would push them up against the wall. They don't push very easy, so it'd be a lot cheaper than 25,000, I think. So
I think we've made that point. We'll look when it comes back to see some options. Yeah, it's gonna stay in for now. Yeah, I don't think the project's going anywhere for sure. All right, and so you're gonna keep speaking. All right, the oil and grit separator.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Long and short, our current oil and grit separator is damaged. It's not functioning, and it's not to today's standard. Really, to be blunt, you don't really have much of an option other than to actually put a proper oil and grit separator that meets today's standards. So I tried to provide options, but really, you've got one option.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate that. I don't think it's going anywhere. Is there anybody speaking to that? No. All right. You can move on to the holding tank.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Here, there are some potential options. Here, you could continue with the current system and the frequent pump outs. I would be concerned that right now it doesn't appear like there's any sort of exfiltration happening. It's more infiltration, probably from the upper portion of the tank. But I don't think we should be looking at that for any kind of length of time. So really, the two options are replace with basically a similar holding tank model, or you look at going out and having a more traditional septic system installed. So one's in speaking with the contractor, you're looking probably, and 10,000 maybe a little high for that option, but I'm always concerned when you're dealing with underground. You may end up with a little bit of a surprise that you didn't anticipate. So there's a little bit of cushion with respect to both options because of the unknown. Our recommendation is from a longer term investment to look at getting a proper septic system in there to be like a media filtration system, because it has to be on a smaller footprint because we don't have the traditional footprint. So
excuse my ignorance on option 3, which would not require pump outs. What makes it not require any pump outs?
So I would certainly be looking at it. Would there eventually be a requirement for a pump out? There would be. I was looking at it in the context of in a year or 2-year span, and I'm not anticipating that you would have that.
Okay, so how often would they be?
Mr. Mayor, that is a fair question, and probably somebody that is on a septic system may have a better idea on that. I haven't went to that level. I've been on municipal servicing
Yeah, you're lucky.
for some time, so I wouldn't want to hazard a guess, and there's probably much more knowledge on that in the room.
And the pump out that would be required on that one, are we looking at the same dollar value for pump out, 750 to 1,000? Like if we chose option 3 and we had to pump it out every 2 years, are we still looking at $750 to $1,000 every 2 years instead of every year?
I don't think you would be looking at that much.
Would it be less for a pump out?
It would be less.
Okay.
No,
it wouldn't. Okay.
So.
And my other question is for option 2, what's the life expectancy of replacing the existing holding tank? Like if you replaced it, is it going to last 20 years? Because if it lasts 20 years, the pump outs would equal $30,000, right? So 10,000 to replace it, $20,000 in pump outs, it's the same dollar value. So does it last 20 years? Because it's a cheaper option if it is.
So I think through the mayor, I would anticipate that you're probably looking at getting 20 years with a holding tank.
Okay. All right. Well, obviously with this one can't come out. I just had those questions as it's just to decide which option we want to really go, I think. Nobody's taking this out, right? Okay. So we leave it in and then at some point we have to give direction on it. So, but it gives us all time to go away and to think about how we're going to come back and have this discussion next time on all of these items by keeping them in and going forward. All right. So The last one I think we're on then is we are probably to the point of the fleet coordinator discussion. Am I correct? Yep. Fire away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is the an item that has been contemplated in bringing forward for some time. I guess it's one of those items that I at least wanted to raise up before I retired, at least for consideration. I think it's I think it's certainly I think I think it is certainly time given given the magnitude of our fleet and the associated costs that we're running into with repair and maintenance. That my feeling is that by moving to a fleet coordinator position, slash mechanic, that probably within 18 months, you'll start to see pretty good reduction within the repair and maintenance cost. Right now, everything is going out external. And although we've had very good service from those that have had, undertaken the repairs and maintenance on those vehicles, their primary objective is not like sort of a looking at the longevity of the asset and making sure that we're giving a more fulsome look. And I believe that having an internal person adds a little bit more accountability and responsibility within the organization to try to keep those costs down. We can look at it more on a fleet perspective than a departmental perspective, so that if there are vehicles such as the public works manager doing the road patrols, and within 3 years the vehicle kilometers are up around 150, 175, even higher, it probably makes better sense to have that vehicle replaced for that particular purpose, and looking at having that vehicle that's maybe 3 or 4 years into another area to extend its life. It also provides the opportunity to look at some new and different technologies that we certainly know that committee and council are interested on with respect to the either hybrid or fully electric models. Having someone on staff that is available to respond and do that troubleshooting in the field is a bonus. And I think that when you have an individual working on the vehicles, there's probably just a little bit extra care that they're not going to want to be out at 3 a.m. on the side of a road trying to get that unit up. They're going to try to be a little bit more preventative and proactive in that maintenance leading up to the operation. So the recommendation would be to include a fleet coordinator position into the 2025 budget, and I'm sure you'll have a few questions with respect to that, and be happy to try to answer those.
Thanks, COO. I know I'm not there yet, but I do have a couple questions. So, and mine would be relating to our expectation that we're going to get somebody for $40 to $50 an hour to do this. Do we have examples of neighboring municipalities, that sort of stuff, that have been able to successfully hire and maintain staff that are licensed mechanics with all of the accreditations they would need to service a fleet of our sophistication, let's say, that are willing to work for $40 an hour?
So through the mayor, I have done some inquiries with respect to that and certainly know that there's at least a municipality in close proximity to us that would be the range, and that's where we sort of investigated and looked to see where that where that hourly range would be.
Wonderful. So when you talk to that neighboring, close neighboring municipality, did they have any availability or any interest in servicing our fleet for us on a service contract, so that we could see how well this option worked?
I would say that the current fleet that they operate, there would not be much in the way of supplemental time to undertake additional.
They're busy with their own.
Correct.
Okay, which would make sense. I mean, ultimately, if you did this, you'd have to make sure that they were full all the time, which is where I was going with it. Is it seems like a discussion for a tri-municipal council to me for a future goal, in my opinion, where we worked with Prescott and Augusta to understand the costs, sit down and have further discussions. And you know, we're spending a lot of money on this, there's no doubt. And I think if successful, we could save some money. I just, with 50 vehicles, I would struggle to think that that would be enough to keep one person working constantly all the time. You know, if you're doing an oil change on a brand new lawnmower, an oil change on a sidewalk plow, I can't imagine. I struggle to think that there's enough work. So maybe I'm wrong in thinking that. I'm not an expert, but I can't imagine that you run a garage anywhere and make a living off of servicing only 50 vehicles. I just struggle to think that that's possible.
So if I may, Mr. Mayor, so the intent is not kind of what we're currently doing, or we're talking about an oil change, but what we'd be looking at is, for instance, during the winter months, that would give them an opportunity for the fleet coordinator to take a number of the recreation units, or that we'll call it that summer equipment, and give it a really good solid overhaul, a full inspection, full overhaul, ready to go for operation in the summertime. Meaning what we're really looking at doing is reducing the downtime and proactively looking at what may be potential for breakdowns and preventing those as well. And when you really look at it from that perspective of savings with respect to the mechanic's wage, like we can be rest assured that at that 120 and 140, the mechanic is not getting that. That is overhead for that operation. So you're taking that out, and you're taking a more proactive approach to maintaining your assets from a longevity and function standpoint, so that they're available and ready when you need them to be available and ready.
So again, and excuse my ignorance, I'm not being silly when I say this. So between yourself and the roads manager, does the responsibility of fleet understanding fleet maintenance and trying to extend the longevity of the life of our vehicles and the fleet that we have, does that not already fall under somebody's purview? Like, we don't have somebody doing that already?
So yes and no. Right now, in certain standpoints, we're struggling to keep some equipment on the go, and I think really the only thing that we would do by becoming a little bit more proactive, because the majority of it right now, other than your preventative maintenance checks, is more reactive when it's breaking down, as opposed to more proactively investing the time and energy into trying to prevent those breakdowns. And at the cost that we're at now, like we could be potentially talking, another 100 or 150,000 to shift to a little bit more proactive if we're going external.
And but I know, we've talked about that number and we've all been unhappy with a lot of the numbers, but having a mechanic in place isn't going to have fixed what happened to, a motor in a snowplow when it, that separator, the engine fault happened and it wasn't covered under warranty and we replaced it for however many thousands of dollars. At least I don't think it's going to. Is the suggestion that the $650,000 in fleet costs would disappear? Or, because in my mind, a good portion of that would still be there. You still have to, you're gonna have at least half of that has to be parts.
That was my question.
So through the mayor, right now, we're probably looking at about 650, and I'm being generous, right? Within the report, you're probably looking at a parts inventory to start getting yourself set up at about 250,000, maybe a little bit more. With respect to that, you look at the wage, and you look at some of that capital set up. I would think I would prefer to say that we would be at the same cost as we were in 2024 to have a mechanic in place and get ourselves set up. But once that's set up, I anticipate that you're going to see dollars drop off of that cost. Now, is that like 100,000? Is that 150,000? Is that 200,000? I'm not comfortable enough to say right at this time, but what I can say is from my conversations with another municipality in that end of it, probably year 2 to 3 was where they found a pretty substantial drop, and then it's leveled out, because there's a certain amount of maintenance and upkeep that you're going to need with those vehicles, and you're not going to stop every breakdown. I'm not claiming that we are, but if it's a matter of a Holder sidewalk unit that has a breakdown and us having to ship that to Ottawa for a repair versus someone in-house that has enough to keep that up and running and it's ready to go for the next event, I don't know what that's worth, but that's worth a good value. And I think that's where that really starts to take effect when the mechanic gets a really good understanding of the equipment that's functioning and knows some of those parts that are regularly going and proactively preventing those.
I certainly think that there's savings to be had in those instances as well. But I would say for the group around the table, we've certainly made the investment in, we haven't really pushed out longevity in any of the equipment over our 2 years. That's beyond what it has been. We've showed a commitment to actually replace it so that it doesn't have the high maintenance cost of some of the older equipment that we continue to try to maintain. So I would also suspect that, over that 2 to 3 year period, we should see some savings because we're making investment in a better fleet to begin with. Did you have a
Yeah, yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Yeah, actually, there's, you know, and I have a cousin is probably where I'm going to start this conversation, but so I mean, but I do have a cousin who does this for a golf course, and they've gone to this model where I mean they pay him. They also another thing to keep in mind is they're paying him to I think director of operations said they're paying him at a much lesser rate than the garage is charging. The other side of this as well is that the parts you're buying, you know, you should be able to buy parts in volumes. You're not paying the profit. You're also getting a bulk discount because you start to buy the parts in that way. So there is savings to be had. I like to see the idea of how do we actually start to quantify some of these. I think that's what the mayor is saying is how do we know how much we're going to save, and it is tricky for sure, you know. And so I don't know if there's a test case that we can do where we, you know, if somebody is, you know, has a garage that doesn't have work to keep them busy all the time, can we subcontract or part-time supply somebody that way? But I'd love to see options that we could see to do a dummy run, because I do think there's benefits, right? So you know, the fact is we'll be able to do more preventative maintenance on things. If the driver comes in from a run and says, you know what, I noticed there's a little bit of a noise there, somebody addressing that there's a little bit of a noise there versus the engine dying is I think you can actually save some of these repairs. And the ability to have these repairs done quicker, you know, it might or might not, but it gives you the possibility that because you have a quicker turnaround time on the repairs, that maybe, you know, it actually increases your capacity, which allows you to maybe put off some of these decisions we make about extra equipment. So I think it's definitely worth keeping in. I would like to see some more science behind it, but I know that might be an ask that we can't accomplish unless you have a good crystal ball or something. But I do think that it's something we should be looking into for sure. So.
You want to weigh in?
Just a little. Yeah, I guess I'll be blunt. I wonder, Mr. Grant, could you come back maybe in 3 years with that? I don't want to be involved in this one at all. I find this is just we've been down that road a little in the last term too, talking about it. I just find it's way, way, way too expensive of what we get out. I would love to get one mechanic or one company who would look at our fleet, who would put us on a program to bring it in whenever we need service, the whole 9 yards. But I've been down that road with other organizations, and the cost to save money there is just not there. I mean, our company, I remember we got 95 vehicles and we still didn't think it was worth it. And they're right to this day, they're not, you know. So I just can't see the savings or the expectation that our equipment's going to last longer. But that's just me. But you know, we have to start somewhere. I like to remove it. That's just mine.
Thank you.
Yeah, just a couple of questions for clarification. This 650 figure, that does include parts and labor, correct? Taxes, a whole bit.
That is your maintenance and repair budget.
Have we attempted at all to segregate it and say actually how much we are spending on labor? Because at the end of the day, that's all we're going to save is the labor costs, right?
Detailed out the exact labor versus parts. No. Like I don't have that detailed. I don't have that detailed out. I've certainly done some spot checks with respect to some of the bigger repairs on what that labor breakdown is versus the material breakdown. But remember that with those parts, you're getting a markup where we wouldn't have that markup.
Yeah, I understand that, but I don't think it's that significant. Being with my history in the business and being qualified actually for this position. Somewhere I have a dusty mechanic's license at home. The 650, I'm assuming that was last year. Do we have like a 3-year or 5-year trend or anything like that?
I can certainly provide that to you, but I believe that 2023 was about 637. Just to put it into context, 2019 was like 389, 390 when we looked at originally bringing this forward. So.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with the deputy mayor. I'd pull this one.
Thank you, Your Worship. to David or Chris, when you have, I've noticed lots of times when I drive by Peterbilt or by Corey's, our trucks are sitting there like for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Is it, so they're out of service while they're sitting there, is that correct?
That would be correct.
So an advantage of having our own mechanic, he'll be back on the road is within what, a day or so?
Depending on why they're sitting.
Yeah.
So, correct. So like some of that is a crystal ball, but what you would also be looking at is that you would be having the parts for your specific equipment where you have other mechanics that are not going to have that overhead and stock in there just in case the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal comes along the door and knocking, wanting a repair. Like, so I think like some of that is no doubt crystal ball that, you know, that's not to say that the unit couldn't be sitting for several days or a week. But I also would prefer to have that unit, if it was sitting for a week in one of our yards or in the shop and not visibly out where everybody's passing by and looking at those units out of service for an extended period of time on a small part. So.
Kind of torn with this one. I get the idea. I think it's a good idea. I would leave it in for now just to give it some more thought and you know, I don't think it should just be thrown out. I think it deserves some more consideration.
I've tried to get this in for years. I think it's definitely the right way to go, especially now with the more equipment that we have now. You gotta look at one point, you're gonna pay a mechanic $40 to $50 an hour. You're gonna have no trouble getting a mechanic for that wages. Mechanics right in town here, none of them make that kind of money. So you have no trouble hiring one, I'm sure, at that wage, especially with the benefits the township offers, that no garage offers those benefits. You're gonna save at least 40% on your parts. That's a standard markup, but minimum, a lot of the garages have 100% markup on them when they come, so you're saving a lot on parts. You got to get a maintenance schedule set up that, as we said, you hear a little rattle on the truck. I'll give you an example. We had a truck a few years ago. Our International ended up back to head to trade because the motor seized up in it because antifreeze went in it. If you had a mechanic checking that in the morning, that truck would have never left the yard. Because any mechanic would have seen that. Our two drivers that were sitting in the yard seen it when they turned in the corner to come by the shop. But my son couldn't get him stopped. He drove out to the thing and it seized up by the time it got there. That was something would have been caught at home. That was a $30,000 repair bill or something that time. So there's major repairs that you're going to save money on. There's minor extensions of life, especially on our recreation equipment that is basically used during the summer on the small tractors and mowers and stuff, that if he's not busy servicing heavy equipment or something in there, he can have them in there. They can be taken apart, cleaned, blades sharpened, mowers, decks painted and fixed up that they're ready to go, that instead of getting 5 years, you're going to get 10 or 12 years out of them, the same as most lawn maintenance ones do. They have mechanics that work there and they work all winter servicing the equipment, cleaning it, sharpening it, that the first day that it's ready to go, there's no waiting. Do we have to get somebody to change the oil or do we service that? That equipment's all serviced, set and ready to go. We've had Zambonis break down that cost us money waiting for somebody to come in and fix them, where your own mechanic would go and get them up and going. We've been lucky. We've had some recreation guys that Mike has that's been pretty handy at fixing up chains and stuff on them when they break, but that's not really their job to do that. So I think it's a good idea. Like, you have somebody responsible every day for making sure the trucks and everything are going. If you have an emergency breakdown, you have somebody there that you can call in to come and work on them at night. Like, it's a big savings. That's why you see a lot of the small construction companies now, I know 2 or 3 of them, they only have 4 or 5 trucks, but one of their drivers is a mechanic. They pay him a little extra and he drives, but when he's not, something breaks down, he's in the shop working. Because he's a Class A mechanic, so.
Yeah, I certainly don't think that there's any a doubt that in the long term that there's the potential um, for savings. I can't. I'm not sure how mechanics do their work, but I'm not an expert on them. But I don't check my oil every day before I drive my car to work. Like, I don't check my antifreeze every day before I go to work. Is it going to be the mechanic's job to make sure that that's done? I mean, that's the suggestion, and I struggle to think that that's going to be the case. I need a motion to extend, please.
Move that we extend.
All in favor? Dissent? I'm with you, 3-2. Just kidding. The only other question, Dave, that I have on this, and it's divided. It's actually 4-3 in the way that I count it to continue staying on. So I think it'll stay on. But the other question is, do we expect one person to be able to do some of the major work that they need to be able to do? Is one person going to be able to do it, or are some of these jobs 2-person jobs? And are we thinking one person, or are we thinking a mix of? You had it on there too. A mix of 2 people. I know in my mind to support this all the way through, and I'm going to be quite honest with it. It's going to have to be a collaborative effort for South Grenville Garage. I just don't see it as being worth the while to make the investment for just Edwardsburg Cardinal. But I might be able to get my head on it a different way. But are we expected that one person's going to be doing the work, or like some of these jobs look like they're going to need 2 people to be able to do some of the work? So bigger work.
So I would certainly say that one person should be able to do the majority. Now, whether that means that one of the other employees need to add some assistance with respect to, like dismantling a particular part just due to weight, etc. I certainly can't say that, but my indication is the majority of the work is done by one individual. There's certainly opportunity to have some supplemental assistance, probably with an adjacent municipality.
Yeah, I'm just
not a partnership. I don't like I want to be blunt as well. Like, I just don't see it as something that you're looking at one person doing like multiple municipalities fleets.
Yeah, I don't either. Not one person. From a ministry standpoint, like I see the MTO parked all the time lately, along 416, especially when you get off the 401. Makes me think about like when you replace or you take off a tire to do brake work, and you torque the nuts back on to one of our plow trucks tires. Do they need a second mechanic to do a retorque to check that sort of stuff? Like, or is that one person can sign off on it and it's all good?
So one person can certainly sign off on that. Part of establishing the mechanic, we would need to go through it's now the drive-on program to have one of our locations as really an inspection station. So we're required to document that we have like a torque wrench. You'd have to take a picture of the serial number, a picture of the unit, upload that so that they have that the basic tools that are required to perform at that station are there and available in that regard.
Well, I think there are more questions to be answered, but I certainly don't think that there's enough non-supportive people to take it off for today. So I think it'll survive until budget 2. So we'll take from the conversation what you may for the further discussion if you want to upgrade the report so that it sells. I think there were 3 of us that spoke against it versus 2 that spoke for it. So I think you're going to have to win at least 1 more vote for it to survive budget 2. But
certainly appreciate the consideration. I understand that it's a big move. Bringing it forward because I feel it is the right move, and I understand the some of the questions and hesitation.
yeah,
Thank
we
you.
certainly appreciate the. It's certainly forward thinking, and it certainly gives us a lot to think about over the next couple of weeks while we wait for information for budget 2. Thank you to all staff for your patience tonight, and budget is always slightly difficult. I know we talked about this before. This structure tends to be difficult at times and a little bit divisive, and for that matter, I don't like it. I appreciate, being able to ask staff difficult and direct questions in this environment as we have a responsibility as we move this forward. So it's never hopefully never a feelings hurt kind of situation, and that we're ultimately just doing our job as we want to move our individual mandates and directions forward, as well as what is best for the corporation. So with those few words, I'll move on to number 9, which is councillor inquiries and notices of motion. Does anyone have an inquiry or a notice of motion? Councillor Smale.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm inquiring about, there's a bylaw in place for, I'd like to see the Cardinal Public Works building renamed as the Bill Walter Building, in respect for Bill Walter. I have at further discussion next meeting.
Okay. Good. Thank you for that inquiry. That'd be a fantastic tribute to Cobe for sure. Chris, you had something you wanted to bring forward?
I did, yes. Actually, it was more as we start to see more and more pieces of information coming to us. You were referencing this. I wouldn't mind, and it doesn't need to be something out of the council, I don't believe, unless you feel it does, but I wouldn't mind some sort of a correspondence package or some information about, some statistics or some way to help us to understand this canoe distribution thing, to be honest, about is there a real benefit to us, or is it just because I'm just not seeing it. Maybe it is a good pricing source for us to get parts from, but I just can't tell that from what I've read on the internet and things like that. So if we can have some sort of an evidentiary that to supply to council, I wouldn't mind that, to be honest. So
Your intention being?
Because we keep seeing things where we're sole sourcing through Canoe, essentially. We've seen 2 of them now, right?
So a little
just wanna see the
justification
validity
for
of
sole
that.
sourcing. I just needed to get it through my brain because it's really a staff function, but for the understanding before we ask for that. So see a nod over there for that one as well. Deputy?
Yes, I'd just like to make an inquiry. Said I'd like to have a report, if I could, from our facility manager on the status of the Spencerville Arena, how good it is, the life of the engineer report, how many years we have, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
If we could have that for the next meeting, if that's possible. And I'd also like to congratulate our staff and the residents of Edwardsburg Cardinal. We are the champs for 2024 for the most food raised for the South Grenville Food Bank.
1,971 pounds.
1,973 pounds, and I drank out of that cup. So,
yes.
well done, staff and the residents of our great township.
Yeah, thanks for that, Steve. And to CAO, I think, I don't know if that's a doable, I understand the request for the arena, and I do think that we need it as soon as we can get it, but I'm not sure if it's reasonable to have it for the next meeting, but as soon as we can have it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because the next meeting technically is in 10 days.
I
so
know.
That's a little quick.
And I understand.
No,
I
I didn't mean
understand
that.
Steve's expedience, but I don't, I don't think it's
Didn't mean it that way.
I don't think it's
Not at
doable.
all.
I know it, I think I know what you meant, but I
Not
didn't
at all.
want Mike on the
A month.
on the hot
1 month.
spot. I'm gonna skip members report. Or wait, does anybody, I'm gonna skip my own. Does any member have a report that they want to bring forward? Thank you. No. Question period, nothing. Closed session we did at 5 o'clock. And adjournment, I need a motion for adjournment. Moved by Chris Ward, seconded by Waddy Smale. All in favor, we're adjourned.
Was a long ways.
On that, how you going home?